Hello, quick content warning for this episode. We cover the second half of the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef. If you are not familiar, there are many accusations thrown between the two of them. I will not be repeating them here, but just to give you a heads up, this includes DV, SA, the big P word, not the kind that Drake records himself with, and anything in between. I censor most of it, but the general discussion is there and it is pretty prevalent. So if that's something that bothers you, maybe sit this one out or do your research beforehand, see if it's something that you're comfortable hearing. But otherwise, enjoy. Thank you.
Sleeper Suplex!
Hello, once again, everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of Sleeper Suplex, coming at you live from a mountain on top of a molehill. I am one of your co-hosts, Kobe.
I'm George.
George is here too. So today is yet another very special episode. Sequentially, I'm not sure when this is going to come out. It'll probably come out right after the first special episode, but it is special for multiple reasons. One of the first special reasons is currently on a Zoom call with us. Special reason on Zoom. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, my name's Kira. I go by THATHORRORBIsh on all social medias. I am a horror book reviewer primarily, but I am a hip hop head for life. And so I am here to talk about that today.
Awesome. So you might be wondering why we have someone who rates horror movies, but is also a quote unquote hip hop head for life on the show. It is because today we are delving once more into that lovely, greasy, disgusting hole that is the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef.
It's because shit got spooky.
It's because
we need to call in the professionals to help dissect this corpse that's been thrown in front of us.
Something about the energy we put out into the universe, Kira, is this last episode we recorded. Usually we take a month or two to like release and like record new shit. This time it has been 2 weeks, and the last time we talked about it, they had just released Push-Ups, and now we have not spoken on air about it since fucking everything happened. It's really kind of bizarre. I don't know what energy we're sort of playing with here. You know what I mean?
You just lit a fire.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah. We waded in the waters too hard.
Yeah. We struck just before the iron got hot, and we're striking now just after the iron cooled down.
We really are. We're getting in the pool right before and right after adult swim.
Yep. Absolutely. I will say though, if I can toot our own horn, in the last episode, we made a few predictions. We had a few discussions. Most of that stuff has come to light. Like in the last episode, what we did was we brought in 3 songs from Drake, 3 songs from J. Cole, and 3 songs from Kendrick.
Yeah, in that order.
And our big finale song was Mother I Sober. And I went on this huge rant at the end of that episode where I said, Drake already lost by mentioning Whitney's name. I said, you cannot diss someone who put out a song like Mother I Sober and have it go well if you don't really understand who they are as a person, and if you're not super careful about their angle. And now the general consensus being that the beef is over. Yeah. Ending it with a song that directly misinterprets Mother I Sober. I got to give myself a round of applause for that. I think I predicted that shit on a dime. I'm going to stop being cocky after this, but this is my claim to fame right here. If we had more than 25 viewers, I would totally run that shit to the bank and back, man. I called it.
Absolutely.
So we were talking a little bit off air, and I know that the ever humble George Rosatone and I were speaking a little bit last recording rather. We were talking very much our feelings on each of at that point 3 rappers at the top of the pyramid. Now it's 2, and we were speaking a little bit off air, Kira, about your experience with Kendrick and where it goes. I'm curious if you want to talk about what's your feeling, I guess before and after, but what's your feeling about Drake and Kendrick Lamar? How do you feel they sit? If you say Drake is better than Kendrick Lamar, we will only judge you a little bit. It's really, what's your feeling? What's your sum up on it? What's your relationship there?
So I've been saying that Kendrick's the GOAT for years now. So that's always where I've sat, like in the camp. My husband says that Wayne is the GOAT, and that's kind of always been like our back and forth.
Very respectable. Very respectable. I love me some Wayne.
So I've always when he said, motherfuck the big 3, it's just big me. I'm like, yes, that was that was absolutely where I felt. I was a really huge Drake fan back in the day. So when as a Canadian, right? We don't really have much rap going on here. And so when 2010, 2011 was really I was 18 years old. I was in my partying stage. I loved Lil Wayne. I loved Nicki Minaj. And they were really it at that time. And so I loved Drake. I loved the bops. But as time went on, and he started to kind of like change his tune and change what he was rapping about and start putting on different personalities, I was like, oh, I'm not feeling it so much. In my personal opinion, I don't think Drake has had a good album since More Life. I think that was his last good album.
You thought More Life was good. You like More Life? Oh my God. I have to completely disagree with you there.
So here's the thing. I was already in my hating Drake era when More Life dropped. And I remember it specifically because when it dropped, I didn't want to listen to it. And my husband was playing and I was like, turn this shit off. And then I was like, okay, this is kind of.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I will say Do Not Disturb is like one of his best songs ever in terms of a diary Drake.
Agreed. Sorry, my cat is just like falling off the shelves here.
Oh no, it makes for great.
They want to be
great
involved.
Feeling.
They want to be involved.
So when did Drake fall off for you? Like, what was the hard cutoff between not liking him anymore?
So there was a couple of things. I think music-wise, Views was hot garbage. I listened to Views and I was like, what the fuck is this? I don't recognize Drake. This doesn't sound like Drake. It's supposed to be huge, especially for Toronto. He's sitting on the top of the fucking CN Tower. Like, I thought it was going to be like bops, and I don't remember anything on that album, and I didn't really listen to it. But specifically when Drake fell off for me, like as a woman, is when I found out he was texting Millie Bob about or Millie Bobby Brown at 13 or 14 years old about boys.
When was
I was
that?
like, you're done. You're done.
When did those texts come out?
That was it for me.
That was like, so.
That had to be a while ago now. She was 13.
So I think that, because she's 19, 20, 21. She's married. She's married, which is fucking weird.
Yeah. I want to say probably I remember hearing about that in like 2017 or 2018.
That sounds about right. Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, she's married, so maybe the advice was good. So like,
I didn't know how to process that. I kind of just looked at you. So that tells me that you prefer a more, what's the word?
Mixtape Drake.
Like definitely a more rap leaning Drake. Because I feel like Views was his big literal like pop off. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's when things really took a turn for the radio. For sure.
I think if you're seeing this, It's Too Late was amazing. Like that was a great one from him. I gotta give credit where credit's due. I went to that tour. I listened to it all the time.
Yeah.
We spoke about that last week. I brought in. We were talking. So as George said, we did a song each from each artist, right? And I brought in Legend off of If You're Reading This, It's Too Late. And I said on the show, the only era of Drake I can, with good faith, say, hey, you might find some stuff here that's catchy and quality. You're going to want to go to mixtape era Drake, right? And I believe it was Dom who said, quote, and I remember this because I listened to this the other day just trying to do a little bit of a refresher on where we were.
This is our last guest said this.
Yeah, Dom, who, great. He was an awesome guest. So fun. Love. He said, quote, I don't like anything about this song. So I don't know. I'm relieved to hear that you're sort of on the sane side of the Drake debate with that. You know what I mean?
The sane side.
Well, because Dom's a fucking lunatic.
I think some Drake stands might come for me by the end of it. But yeah, I gotta give credit where credit's due. I can't sit here and pretend like I didn't bump Drake or like Drake. He came up and he was huge and I did like it, but it just started to, go downhill for me.
And this is the last we will talk about it before we really get into like the content of the beef today. My last question here for you is, so we were talking last week too about the eras of Drake, right? Where early on it was mixtape era Drake, and the belief when you're making mixtapes and stuff is that it's meant to be a hungrier time. You're trying to get signed, you're trying to make it, you're trying to be heard, all that, right? And then at some point during the time, presumably before he starts texting children, he sort of became much more major label mainstream, right? And I'm wondering, in your opinion, what is like stylistically, where did he start losing you? Like what about his style now is not as intriguing to you as his mixtape era? Because I know what we thought, or at least I know what I thought, and I'm curious with your opinion on the mixtape era, what you feel about that.
So I think that it's a lot of what people have been talking about right now. And I didn't place it so accurately before, but now that people are talking about it, I'm like, yeah, that's it. He became inauthentic. So I felt like when Drake came out, you know, he did the pop rap stuff, he did the mixtape stuff, he was with Lil Wayne, but he still sounded like him. He was still rapping about things that sounded authentic to him. He still kind of like had that Canadian vibe, you know, that Canadian swag. And then all of a sudden I'm starting like to hear him talk about like guns and gangs and violence and stuff. And I'm like, this is not, and don't get me wrong, because I listen to a lot of rap music where they talk about that. But for me, it just felt like, what is Drake doing? Like, what are you talking about? And it's interesting because I saw an interview, and I don't know when it was, but they interviewed Wayne. And he said that when Drake came to the States, he told him, don't stop doing what you're doing. Don't start rapping about what I'm rapping about. Don't start doing guns, lean, all this stuff, because that's not you and that's not how you got famous. And he was right, ultimately, because when he started just like, I don't know, like leaning into all of this gangster stuff, it just didn't feel like Drake to me. So I think I like backed off. And I didn't realize at the time that it was because it felt inauthentic. I just, at the time, I'm like, this doesn't sound like him, and I'm not interested anymore.
Yeah. I always wonder about that. Like, he has this beef with The Weeknd about who reps Toronto better? Isn't that the deal?
Yeah.
And he also talks sometimes, which is, listen, respect to Canada.
I think
all
it's
respect.
also
it's such a funny, like, no, I'm for Toronto. That's funny to me. And rap, like in certain aspects, it's like, all right, I get it. In rap, it's like, yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, Canadian rappers are a funny breed. Again, no offense, but it's just...
No, they are. One of them's currently in jail.
Tory Lanez, yeah.
Well.
Jeez, the Tory Lanez reference.
I can think of Tory, I can think of The Weeknd and Drake. I can't think of many other Canadian...
Belly's from Ontario.
Belly? Oh, God. I wasn't expecting that name at all. Jesus.
I love Belly. But it's because I remember listening to him like, again, like back in 2010, 2011, before he really popped off.
No.
We've been listening to Belly.
Isn't 50 Cent from Saskatchewan?
He doesn't count. 50 Cent.
He's not from Saskatchewan. I know. He's from fucking New York.
Yeah, he got shot 9 times.
Famously from New York. Yeah, but that's and this is the last thing, because I understand that we have content that we're trying to talk about. But like when Drake talks about this like being like harder than thou thing, it makes me laugh. And you as a Canadian, as you said, you probably know this better than me, because I am from, as everyone knows, the mean streets of Massachusetts. So it's really harsh down here. But is fucking, first of all, I don't know proximity-wise where you are versus Toronto, but is Toronto known for being harsh? Because the perspective Americans have on Canada is that it's extremely nice.
We're all sorry, and
exactly.
Yeah, Toronto is hard, and I think that personally, when he started leaning into his like Toronto slang, even though like that's a whole conversation in itself, I felt like that was more authentic for him, even though, you know, we could talk about when Drake really lived in Toronto, how he spoke, but that's besides the point. I think when he leans into that, it's more authentic just because he's from there. But it is like right now, crime is super high in Toronto. There's like huge things about just cars being stolen left, right, and center everywhere, specifically in Toronto. And there's quite a bit of gang violence there. I mean, there's gang violence everywhere in Canada, but because there's so many people compacted into Toronto, I think there's like 10 million. Like it's, I mean, there's going to be poverty, there's going to be gangs, there's going to be violence. So it is kind of synonymous. Yeah.
So from your perspective, how prevalent was rap in Canada, like pre-Drake? Was Drake sort of like the bridge there between the sort of like Americanized like rap as a capitalist product, bringing that to Canada? Or was rap always...
Yeah, I could definitely credit Drake to that. I mean, again, it's hard for me to conceptualize because like I've always been listening to rap and hip hop. So for me, it's always been big. But definitely it's easier to digest and listen to Drake if you're like a pop fan or like a radio fan. You can kind of like delve into that a little bit more, and maybe it was a lot of people's introduction into other rap artists because again, he's like more easily digestible as a rapper. So I could definitely credit that to him. There's probably been a spike, and especially to another thing I can credit him for is he did like to put people on and bring smaller acts on tour, and then again giving them more like giving them to the world essentially so people can hear them more.
Yeah. Like he apparently did with Kendrick.
And Rick Ross. Here's my question.
ASAP Rocky. Yeah.
ASAP Rocky. Would we have that fat motherfucker Rick Ross? If
Yes, we would.
Would we?
That was all Kanye.
Yeah.
That was Kanye and Wayne.
And
I think that was Kanye, yeah, because I feel like they were both him and Rick Ross were kind of coming up together.
Yeah. I mean, listen. What would my life be without Rick Ross? And this is another moment where this podcast is going to get on a limb and say, thank you, Kanye. Another time that we are going to thank
thanking Kanye.
Again, thank you, Kanye. You can't see this.
Kendrick would not have won this beef without Kanye jumping in the ring.
And thank God Kanye rode in on his white horse. And yes, it was a white horse.
Yes.
And said, hey, I got you, Dot. I fucking love it.
Yeah, with his army of German skinheads that he was bringing with him.
I think I have it in my notes here on this little rundown. Like I have notes for all the songs that I listened to, and then in little parentheses I have about 5 songs I didn't, and so I have as a little footnote Kanye drops Like That remix as well.
I didn't even hear his Like That remix. Oh my!
You don't need to.
No one did. No one did.
J. Cole gets hurt more in that remix than
Which
Drake
is
does.
so funny.
Oh my God!
It's so funny that he says, "Hey, the tall motherfucker who's not part of it. I'm gonna get him." I love that.
I'm gonna kill the man who quit 4 weeks ago.
I mean, to be fair, that's true to Ye. He's always attacking everybody that's just minding their business.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's just making speeches in a house.
Yeah,
absolutely.
People.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I want to go on record because I understand that in this medium, this audio medium, and we're hoping to get video incorporated at some point. But for now, in this audio only medium, it might not come off that I was joking. We do not we do not support Kanye. It is unfortunate. We were talking about how we like his music. He is a bad person. Hot take on record. Not a good person.
Not a good person.
And that's why we are not going to talk about him anymore at all. So
to give Drake any credit, thank him for not mentioning Kanye in any of his diss songs.
Hey, if there's one thing that you can say about Drake, he hasn't outwardly been anti-Semitic yet.
Well, he's Jewish, isn't he?
Well, he's Jewish, so.
Is he actually Jewish?
Well, that was the original Drake joke. I remember that from his early career. People were getting on Drake for being Jewish.
I think in I don't remember which music video it was, but there's quite literally a music video, I think, off the album Take Care, where he's like performing a bar mitzvah.
Yeah. I've seen these like little meme
I don't know if it's worse behavior. I'm not sure.
So for context, our co-host here, Kobe, is Jewish, so he can give him more.
He's part of the team. Welcome, Mazel Tov. He's part of the team. His mom's Ashkenazi Jew. Okay, so we're not gonna. That's crazy. Shit. Oh my God. I thought people were joking.
So you can give the Jewish perspective. We have the Canadian perspective, the Jewish perspective. We got to find what Drake has for me. Drake has nothing for me yet. I don't see any representation yet.
Drake has for you. We'll talk about it off air.
But the first thing that Drake gave all of us was push-ups.
Yes, it was, and that is such a good segue.
You're welcome.
So we're gonna work really quickly through the timeline because this is gonna be a much more generalized discussion. But I did sort of go through and sort of create a small little timeline for us, and I will. So, if your head has been under the fattest rock possible,
Rick Ross.
if you have been underneath Rick Ross for about a month and a half and also didn't hear that motherfucker start talking, Kendrick Lamar and Drake, parentheses, and J. Cole, we'll get to it, were involved in a bit of a, I think you could call it a kerfuffle. I think that's a fair,
a family feud.
A family feud.
For sure.
A family feud, yes. Yeah. And
trouble in the herd. And
so really quickly, I'm just going to run you through the timeline. So on March 22nd, the song Like That drops off of We Don't Trust You, the Metro Boomin Future project. And on that is a hidden feature by Kendrick Lamar. On this hidden feature, this is sort of the flashpoint, the smoking gun. He says, in response to a verse on For All the Dogs with J. Cole and Drake,
which he was invited on.
Apparently he was invited on. This is news. I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
George Rosatone is working for J. Cole's camp. Didn't know.
Okay. Allegedly. And
allegedly.
This is new information that we just got.
Okay.
I'm already fucking up the timeline.
No. This is good supplementary information. I didn't know this.
Allegedly, what sparked this whole thing, besides all the sneak dissing for years, was Drake invited Kendrick to be on that song.
Yeah.
And it was going to be, you know, the big three were all on the same song together.
Yeah.
And I believe Kendrick said no for some reason.
No.
Probably because Drake was going to be there.
Yeah.
You think?
Again, trouble with an audio-only medium. I was joking. And Kendrick says this on one of his diss tracks. I think it's Euphoria. Maybe it was it Euphoria?
I think it's Euphoria. Yeah, it's Euphoria.
Yeah, he says something along the lines of like, you know, you're asking me for a feature, but we have business that we haven't settled yet.
Yeah.
You know, so like,
well, this is sort of that's kind of the thing is what I don't know if gets lost in the shuffle is kind of the thing. It's just much less glamorous to talk about. These Drake and Kendrick specifically have been sort of sneakily going back and forth with each other forever, just needling each other for a long time, and it's kind of funny to think about because what we now know is what we always knew, which is that Drake is very much little brother. Kendrick is very much like different level poet laureate of the last 30 years of rap and shit. So it's always funny to think about, and we now know the answer to the question that we could have told ourselves the answer to anyways. But it's interesting because that kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. It was always. It kind of feels like in hindsight we were always going to come here. You know what I mean? Like it's like, when you look back on like
for sure.
like any historical conflict, you can always say, "Oh, well, here's 1,000 reasons why this was always going to fucking happen." You know what I mean? So it's just really interesting. So
I could argue that you could say that it was probably going to happen when Control dropped.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
100%. And shit. One day we will hear other verses from other people who got dissed on Control, and I think that'll be funny. One day. One day.
there actually are a bunch.
Oh, I'm sure.
There are a lot. He named everybody.
He really did.
Drake responded to Control way back in the day too.
That was such a moment too, because isn't it a thing of like people who weren't on Control were talking about why the fuck didn't he mention me on Control? That's so interesting.
Most rappers were upset because they felt like, okay, why don't you see me as competition? Right?
It's so
and I'm pretty sure every rapper except Drake was like, yeah, okay, yeah, we're like, love you, but we're in competition, right? It was only Drake that got upset.
Yeah.
I forget what Drake said, because Drake did have a verse where he responded to Control around the time Control came out. It was a Future song. It was called Shit.
That's ironic.
Oh yeah.
That's ironic.
Okay, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and it was a remix. I mean, it was very light. He didn't say anything like damning. It wasn't a direct diss. It was just you know, the typical Control response thing. J. Cole responded to it too back in the day on a Justin Timberlake song.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
Of all songs.
Yeah, that's the thing is like all these people responded to it, but they responded to it in weird places.
Yeah.
Very few people actually like took the time to.
Yeah, I think they wanted to seem unbothered by it. I really do. I think they thought, if I had to guess, I feel like there's this posturing thing where they're like, oh, well, if I respond, then I'll seem like a bitch. But if I respond on someone else's song, it's like, you know what, back pocket, just top of the dome when I walked into the booth today. You're a fucking bitch. You know, shit like that.
It was kind of weird, I imagine, at the time. And Kier, you might have more of a perspective on this, but I can imagine it being strange. Because, like, we know who Kendrick is now. We know everything he's done up to this point. But in 2013, when Control came out, he had Section 80 and Good Kid.
Yeah.
And that was it. And he's still up and coming. He's still not selling out arenas, not doing any major tours. He's headlining for Drake, of all people. And for him to come out and name all these people, declare himself the king of New York, it was probably a little bit of like, if I acknowledge this, I'm just giving him more power and publicity. When he hasn't really earned. I mean, Good Kid's an amazing album, but he hasn't really earned it up to that point. Like one classic album, they all had that at that point. Even Drake had Take Care at that point, you know, like.
For sure. I think Kendrick always knew who he was.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's just been, and that goes across the board for a lot of songs. He's been saying he's the best since back then, right?
Yeah.
But he had to, you know, quote unquote, prove himself. But if you put him, like, my argument has always been to anybody that's ever argued that he's not the GOAT, is if you just put his lyrics next to literally anybody else, there's no comparison. There's just none.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's funny, though. Like, I was thinking about that Control verse the other day, and, like, the amount of people he mentions in that verse, it's just such a time capsule, because it's like some of the people that he's naming are, like, people that aren't even like anywhere near his type of music, Like he name drops Mac Miller and like Tyler the Creator.
Yeah.
Like what are they gonna do?
Yeah.
Like come out.
It's true. I feel like Tyler, though, at that time when Control was coming out, obviously he's been his own niche and he's kind of been off in his own lane in rap. But at the time, like Trouble on My Mind came out.
Oh yeah.
And they were, it was Pusha T and him. And like, so he was leaning more into like the traditional gangster rap because I mean, he was just coming up, he was finding himself. So I feel like bringing up Tyler back then, made more sense. If you brought up Tyler and him now, it's like they're in completely different playing fields, right?
Absolutely.
Very much.
Absolutely. It's interesting that, sorry, not to interrupt you.
No.
It is interesting that the common theme of like a big three has always been J. Cole, Drake, and Kendrick. And what's even more interesting is that was never acknowledged by any of them until last October when that Drake song came out, when First Person Shooter.
Yeah.
But it was always like, I remember being in high school seeing like Twitter memes about the big three, like those cringy little pictures of like all their faces. And it's like the heart, the soul, the mind. And it's like, but I never knew that. I mean, I'm sure they've been aware of it this whole time too. At least J. Cole has, but J. Cole was the least surprising out of the three of them to be the first to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
But Kendrick being offended by it really caught me off guard. If that was his intent here.
It's difficult to place what happened. I up until now, it's a really interesting point you bring up because it has genuinely been a conversation for so many years. But I feel like up until now, the way I was seeing it is that, again, to kind of bring it back, like they've been needling each other forever. So it kind of, again, it always felt like we were always going to get to something like this, right? So it's not as though this is Kendrick at his most egotistical, his most fragile. Of course, he's going to respond now. He just made probably his most soul-bearing album yet. Like it's not, it's not like
it's his best album.
We're not doing this week too. We did this before. We're not doing it again.
Album.
It's not true. It's a great album. I really like it. It's going to be a time-honored tradition for years, just like his other ones. It's not his best album. Anyways, like it's not. I love you. And that's a cool opinion. It's just not true right now. It's awesome. It's not true. The point is, shut the fuck up. The point is like, it's weird because it's like you say, it's been around forever. It might just be a perfect storm of shit. Like he might have just woken up one morning and he got a text from Future or whoever these billionaires fucking communicate. However, maybe Metro Boomin sent him a letter. I don't know. But like, however they got into contact with each other, maybe he just woke up and he had just heard someone say the words "for all the dogs" the night before. And he was like, you know what? Because I genuinely believe Kendrick Lamar could spit a fucking like verse of the year candidate with 12 hours prep. I bet you he could.
Well, I just read that all of his songs, Euphoria, Meet the Grams, and Not Like That were one take.
I'm wondering if we read the same tweet. Yeah, because we just read that too. I'm wondering if we did.
Was it like an interview with one of his like close friends or something? That's
the one. Yeah.
We
just saw that today.
It's interesting because you say how Control was such a bold stance from him to say, this guy who's got two good albums, but not, I mean, we know where he's going. He doesn't have TPAP yet, but we know where he's going, right? The upward trajectory.
Good Capacity is GOAT to me.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. But like, it's sort of where he's at. It's interesting you say he's just making this big, frankly, this big bald claim out of nowhere. I remember a video, and I don't remember when it happened or where in his career he was at, but I'm wondering if he did that before or after. Do you remember this video? And it's kind of a famous video, I think.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen it, and I wasn't into rap at the time. It's Kendrick Lamar on stage of some sort of show, and I have it right here on Reddit, so I'm just gonna have to describe it to you. He's on stage of this show, and a bunch of like West Coast rap legends are on stage with him. It's Snoop Dogg, it's Dr. Dre, supposedly it's Corrupt, Daz, Warren G, The Game. They're all there
passing the torch.
Yeah, they say you're gonna have to carry Compton and the West Coast forward.
Yeah,
and
that was before.
This is before.
That's before Good Kid.
This is before Good Kid. So this is what I'm saying. He's sort of. I heard you talking about this kid who's sort of on the way up during Section 80, during that era. It kind of seems like Kendrick has always been the wonder kid. He's the prodigy.
I feel like it was prophesized, because even in a lot of his music, he talks about how his uncle said, you're going to make it, you're going on tour. And this was like, you know, when he was a kid, before he even like really started making moves in the industry. So I think like Kendrick has been hearing it his whole life, probably. And then he gets into the biz, and these like, you know, these OGs are passing him the torch, you know. And I think that obviously he's got a lot of ego. I think you have to have ego to be a rapper. I think like the two go hand in hand. But I think that he knew that it wasn't just because he was surrounded by yes men. He knew that he had what it took. Yeah.
I think too, it's interesting because, like you say, prophecy is I think honestly that's how Kendrick sees it, because you hear him talk about that on Damn on Duckworth. He talks about, he goes, he's like, in a way I am destined to be here because my dad was almost and then wasn't fucking shot by the guy who, I don't know, created the label that he's on. Like, it's very, it's really kind of interesting. It is one of the best stories in hip hop, the way Kendrick came to be, you know?
You know what's really weird though?
Absolutely.
J. Cole introduced Kendrick to Dr. Dre.
Yeah, you said that.
I've seen that on Nardwar. Yeah. Was it a Narwhal interview?
It was Nardwar.
Was
that where that came out?
Yeah.
Nardwar, yeah.
Shout out Nardwar.
Yeah, it's really strange because I'm a J. Cole apologist, so I apologize in advance.
Okay.
But
okay.
like J. Cole being his humble self was really like apprehensive to answer that question. It was one of those Nardwar things where, you know, he does this thing, he digs up the most obscure information he possibly can.
Yeah.
And he drops in this interview from like 2021 or 22, like, you're the one who introduced Kendrick Lamar to Dr. Dre.
That's a really good Nardwar question. You can work that. There's some legs on that. That was good.
Thanks. That was good. That's all the cocaine I've had today.
There you go.
No, and for some reason, J. Cole is like really cautious about answering that. He admits it. He's like, yeah, I did, but he doesn't want to like say that out loud. And I'm not sure if that's because he doesn't want the credit for it, but it's this weird thing.
Drake takes credit for it?
What's up? What'd you say?
Do you think it's maybe because Drake takes credit for Kendrick?
It could be a little bit of that, but it's just like another sign that, like, I mean, even on Section 80, J. Cole was producing a lot of those songs. He produced High Power.
Well, yeah.
He produced.
I didn't even know that.
That's crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, J. Cole produced High Power. He produced a few other songs on there, I think. They've been longtime collaborators, like behind closed doors, but I don't know what exactly. I'm starting to, anyway, this is a misjointed point, but I'm thinking that J. Cole's recent involvement with Drake is the spark that sort of set off this, like, okay, now's the time.
Yeah.
We got to do this now. I also think it's age a little bit.
Yes.
I think they're both getting old.
Yeah.
They're both like nearing the end of their prime. And they're like, okay, we've been pussyfooting around this for a decade. Let's just do it. Like, let's just fucking go for it at this point.
I like that read. I think that's a good point. I think sort of when you see, first of all, we've spoken about it before, J. Cole has been on kind of a feature here. So I think the sort of, I do think in a way the gauntlet was thrown there a little bit, where Kendrick's like, hey, here's this guy who, as we've seen, he's spoken about it, I don't even think is fucking good for the culture. He's not true to this thing that J. Cole and I are supposed to fucking love. And you can understand too.
Absolutely.
You can understand too, Schoolboy Q, another one who's sort of in that orbit a little bit, saying to J. Cole, hey, by the way, Schoolboy Q should be given a Presidential Medal of Honor for saving J. Cole at this fucking point.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
Put him in the big three.
He fucking should be. He said, buddy, I like to imagine the scene. They're like smoking cigars in like a room, and he puts his hand on his shoulder. He's like, buddy, first of all, 7-minute drill was ass. 7-minute drill was ass. First of all. Second of all, it was ass.
It was not ass.
7-minute drill was ass.
Thank
It was not ass.
Hey, it's 2 out of 3, and you're not going to argue.
It was a misstep. It was not ass.
You're not going to argue with
it was
the
a
guest.
mistake.
Hey, you're not going to argue with the guest on the show, are you? That's not good host mentality. So my thing is,
I already established myself as a J. Cole apologist. I'll fight every hill. But keep going.
This is not the one you want to die on. Not the point.
Hey, he won.
He won what?
He had the best outcome out of this situation, honestly.
I guess that's fair. I think Kendrick did, but I get that's the point. Is this? I think it's kind of what you're saying, where it's like Schoolboy Q. I think at this point was kind of like, just so you know, this is going to turn ugly, and he's mad and he's mad that you don't understand why he's mad. It's very much like girlfriend, boyfriend, sort of like a relationship almost, where he's like, yo, he's mad, and he's even more mad that you don't know why he's fucking mad. You need to take about 5 steps back because this is going to get... I like to imagine he showed him a photo of like Kendrick's notebook and he was like, oh, okay. All right. Or he had like...
I don't think Kendrick was ever trying to take shots at Cole.
No.
He did, obviously.
Oh,
he
yeah.
talks about like if it's Andre with a stick it in Andre 3K. You know, so he takes shots at Cole in it. But I think ultimately, I don't think that he would be bothered by being put in the big 3 with J. Cole. I mean, like you said, they've been working together forever. He's always had respect for Cole. He has a song where he says, if not J. Cole, your shit is trash. You know, so he loves Cole. And I think they have like that camaraderie. I think that Kendrick can never allow himself to be put in a category with a man who has a ghostwriter.
Yeah. I think that's a good point.
And he had to take shots at that. He had to say, no, don't put me in a group with you.
Yeah,
because we are not the same.
Right.
You know?
I think Kendrick's big 3 was revealed on Mr. Morale. Another reason why it's his best album. But on Savior, he opens it with, Kendrick made you think about it. He's not your savior. Cole made you feel empowered. He's not your savior. Future made you get a money counter. He's not your savior.
Future being in his big 3 is so funny for him.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah,
I would much rather put Future in a big 3. I mean, if we're thinking like, what are the roles of the big 3, right? We've had this discussion a million times, but if Kendrick is the poetic, artistic type.
The Bob Dylan.
Yeah. Ew, dude. That's a weird comparison.
What's wrong with
Bob Dylan?
He's fucking the poet laureate. He's the troubadour.
I have no problem with Bob Dylan, but comparing Bob Dylan to Kendrick is wild.
Both of them have fucking...
Anyway.
Both of them have Pulitzer Prizes.
Anyway.
They do.
J. Cole fills the role of like the relatable one. He's like the student of the game. He's like the mirror that the fan can see themselves in. You know, where Kendrick is larger than life and like the Messiah type. J. Cole's the big brother type. And that third slot needs to be filled by a pop star or someone who's commercially successful, who represents like the energy in the party scene. And unfortunately, that went straight to Drake.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I think Future is a much better fit for something like that.
I feel like if it's not going to be Drake anymore, it might as well be Future at this point, honestly. Like
it might as well be.
Yeah.
I think I'm not a huge, like, I like Future. I've not really loved a lot of his things along the way, but I think like he's kind of the epitome of like Atlanta rap, right? And like South rap. Like if you have to point to somebody, if you're looking for Southern rap, it's always going to be Future. So like he's really got like the kingpin there.
I think those are really good points, I think. I think that's a really good sum up of...
Which I think, sorry, not to interrupt you.
No, hey.
I think that's another reason why Kendrick decided to hop on a Future song to do something like this. I think it was a combination of...
Definitely.
The J. Cole thing, I think, is what pissed off Kendrick enough. Yeah. And then obviously something happened between Drake and Future, which we'll talk about that more, because I'm very suspicious of the fact that Drake never like directly attacks Future throughout his songs.
He's scared of Future. I feel like he's scared of him.
And it's kind of sad. It's kind of like I'm a pretty big Future fan. I like him a lot. I will admit he has the same problem that Lil Wayne has, where he's like, he's fucking awesome. He's so good, but he just has so much music that like 40% of it is bound to be trash.
That went down. That went down from dinner. He said 50% of his music is trash at dinner. So that changed.
Lil Wayne?
I don't know. Yes.
No, I didn't. You said that.
No, you did.
All right. Well, Lil Wayne, you got to consider like the rock albums. You got to consider the like 60 different mixtapes he has and shit. But
he doesn't even remember the music he made.
Exactly.
You know, it's just too much.
It's so, which is so baller.
Yeah.
But anyway,
the Future and Drake thing almost brings a tear to my eye. I was never like on board for the Future and Drake bromance. No. Like I never loved their collab album too much. Whenever they have songs together, it's like, yeah, okay. But like the way that they talk to each other, even the intro to We Don't Trust You, when Future's like, you my number one fan. Like all that. He sounds sad. He sounds like he's like holding back tears, sipping like alcohol at his desk.
You know what it is? You know what it is? I think I actually know. So you kind of talk about it here. He talks about it a little bit in the beef. It's weird. He goes, first of all, he goes right at Metro, which to me, that's cruel. That's cruel.
I mean, him and Metro have had problems.
And that's fine, but it's kind of, I saw jokes on Twitter, good jokes on Twitter, admittedly, where they were talking about what's Metro going to do, make a beat at him, you know what I mean? And he did, and it kind of worked. But here's the thing, I feel like Kendrick kind of talks about it in one of the later songs. I'm not remembering right off the head which one, but he talks about it in his later songs. When Drake needs cred, what does he do? He goes and he hops on he goes to Atlanta. He hops on a trap song. He calls up Future. He calls up whoever, right? So I feel like he kind of is, in his way, like you said, not going at Future. He's, if you want to dig into it, he's kind of validating what Kendrick says. Future's his meal ticket when he makes a really shitty pop album, which he does once every other year. So like because of that, he kind of can't go at Future. That's exposing his king in a way, or that's exposing his queen.
Future is kind of like him. Like I think that, ending everything off with making a West Coast banger on a mustard beat, like he basically proved his whole point by making that song. He said, now I'm going to go back to my hood and I'm going to make music for my people. That's something you don't do. And you could argue that Future does that too. Yeah. He makes music for where he's from. He reps where he's from, and he's true to that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. We could talk for fucking hours about the dynamic, but we haven't even really covered what's in like that yet. So we're
getting there. We're laying the groundwork.
We're still moving through the timeline. This
so
happens
big
every
three.
time. So big three.
Big three.
Unlike
Fuck
that,
the big three.
Unlike that, yeah.
It's just big me.
That is the flashpoint. That is, you could argue, that is the moment where the gauntlet is firmly thrown. Okay, we're doing this. So on April 5th, very suddenly, J. Cole drops, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here. J. Cole drops a very unexpected, I think it's an EP. I don't even think it's a mixtape. It's an EP.
It's an album.
No,
well, it's a mixtape.
It's a mixtape? Okay.
But it's longer than an EP. It's a full album.
He very suddenly drops an EP mixtape, whatever. A small project collection. The very last song is a song called 7 Minute Drill. It drops on April 5th with a silly Willy ass beat. That turns into a really good Conductor Williams beat, a very good Conductor Williams beat, and why he didn't use that the whole time, I don't know. And he says pretty much on it, why don't you, as the resident J. Cole head, why don't you sum up what he says in as succinctly as you can? What does J. Cole say on that song besides, who cares? What does he say?
You're going to get me going on a rant, so stop me if I start to go too long. But I think 7 Minute Drill wasn't bad.
Not the question, but yeah, go ahead.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
So he says a lot of things on there. Most of them kind of goofy. Some of them really valid. I mean, you got to consider it from a place of perspective. Like I've said this to you a million times, Kira, I'm saying it to you for the first time. I think I would love to see J. Cole and Kendrick go head to head. I think that's a relationship that would be better suited if they were both on the same track. I want to see them try to out-rap each other on the same song. I don't want to see them start insulting each other and go competitive.
Go at each other. No, I could agree with that.
Yeah, because they're both there for the same reason. They both respect each other's work. And on that song, especially the first half, J. Cole spends most of it trying to tear down Kendrick's character, which that's obviously the bad part, because it's like, we don't believe that. He doesn't believe it. He's just talking shit for the sake of talking shit. And it's like, he just feels like he has to probably, or he pulled a Drake move and he's like, hey, I got an album coming out soon. This is good promo if it looks like I'm jumping in this. And that's never been J. Cole's thing. J. Cole's never been one for promo gimmicks, nothing like that. So him trying to do that is what made a lot of people fall off it. But then the second half is where it gets interesting. The second half of 7 Minute Drill, because he starts to say things that, if they were given more time, and if he had the energy, I mean, again, I'm convinced that J. Cole was mid-album rollout when all this shit happened. I think he put it on pause for now, but I think he was completely whiplashed by this whole thing, and given the prep time, he could have fleshed out this idea more. But J. Cole's original thesis in the back half is, you're coming at me for attention.
Yeah.
We are both here for the same reason, but we're doing two completely separate things. And you're acting like the way that you move is better than the way that I move. And he says, he has these lines where he says, like, your arms are too short to box with the god. You live your whole life in a constant facade, like something like that. And he's basically saying like, Kendrick, you keep coming to the game with all these questions and you're presenting these issues through your albums. Good Kid, you talk about your life. Pimp a Butterfly, you talk about the second half of your life, but you put it in the context of societal issues. Damn, it's all about you again. You're asking more questions. You have more confusion. Mr. Morale, you figured your shit out and you're bringing it here to inspire us, but it's still your shit. Whereas J. Cole has always been one to try to offer solutions, even if they're not the most educated.
Right.
Like he has a lot of songs where he brings ideas.
Yeah.
Like he's not always complaining about shit. He's bringing ideas, even if they're dumb. He has a song where he talks about putting an app on your phone where you can choose where your taxes go. A little miseducated idea, but respectable. He has a song about making like a hotline for homicide, kind of like the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. It's like, let's get a phone call that people can ring up when they feel the need to hurt someone or kill someone. And, you know, besides that, he's the head of his own label where he's brung up like a dozen different artists. He's given them all a platform. He has all these compilation mixtapes with them. He's gone on this insane feature run in every pocket. You know, he's done UK rappers. He did Bia. He did Nicki Minaj. He did Benny the Butcher, like Moneybagg Yo, like all these random pockets. He's inserting himself and he's being consistent with his message. And he's essentially saying like, you're not better than me just because you're mysterious. Just because you come out like once every few years and put out something like really good about your own life doesn't make you better than me being a consistent student of this culture. Yeah. And if that idea was fleshed out, it could have been really valid.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've heard this rant already. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I agree. I think like I'm not a J. Cole hater by any means, but I'm also not a J. Cole stan. But there have been, you know, songs that have stood out for me. When Middle Child came out, like I was bumping that shit on repeat. And I think that also, that song in particular is really a testament to the fact that J. Cole's always wanted to pass the torch. You know, he understands that his time is limited in rap, you know, and he's not always going to be on top and like kind of divulging into himself a little more. So I like J. Cole. I like how he thinks. I like how he raps. And I agree that like he's always stayed true to him. I just think that his biggest mistake was getting this close and involved with Drake, because Drake was never on the same level as Cole. They're two completely different guys. And like, yeah, you can come together and you can make songs. But like, I think he got a little wrapped up in this like Drake hype and this Yes Man and this OVO shit. And because when he started collabing with him and making music with him, all of a sudden J. Cole started talking about like, I'm the greatest rapper alive. And I don't think he's ever really, not, again, I don't listen to all of his music, but I don't remember him making those claims until he really started to be around OVO. And I think it just got to him. And then when Kendrick started shooting back at him, I think he started to go, oh shit. Yeah. You know, I think he makes valid points. Like, I think you're right. If we had more time to simmer on it, if it didn't blow up to what it was, maybe if he didn't apologize and like become like the laughing stock, you know, but now everybody's pedaling back. They said he made a smart move, you know, but if we had more time to sit with it, yeah, I mean, I would agree. Like, just because you rap consciously in a different way than me doesn't mean that you're better. But I mean, like, arguably he is, but
but also, you said that it was when he got around Drake that he started saying that I'm the best rapper thing. Again, I understand you're not a J. Cole stan. I am. Yeah. But he's always been saying that shit. He's
okay, fair enough.
But to your point, it's always been like, it's never been I'm better than everyone, I'm the best ever. It's more so like, you know, I'm the best at what I do. If you want to come challenge me on it, like, let's have a friendly competition over it. But like, you know, if someone does better than him, it's always been like, yeah, okay. Like, on his second album, Born Sinner, it came out the same day as Yeezus by Kanye. and he has
he's back. We're talking about him again.
Yes. Yeah. And he has a lyric on the song that Kendrick is featured on. Yeah. Where he says, I'm going to drop my album the same day as Kanye just to show the boys back home I'm the man now.
Oh, shit.
And it's like, oh, shit. He's talking competitively.
He tried to Kanye 50 Cent him.
No. But because he knew he wasn't going to outsell Kanye.
Oh, of course not.
But it's also just like, it speaks to J. Cole's character and the appeal of him in the big three is that he's the relatable one. He's the bridge for the fan to get into it. Whereas Kendrick seems like this untouchable messiah. J. Cole, we could have a conversation with him if he was sitting here right now. And him saying stuff like that.
Some of us could, yeah.
Is like, and him saying stuff like that is like, I'm not claiming I'm the best because I want everyone else to feel like shit about themselves. Right. I'm claiming I'm the best because I want to inspire my people.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's always been an optimistic twist.
Right. So it's I think these are all good points. Real quick, this is what I said to you a little while ago, and I'm going to say it to you again now, just so we have it on record. I think you do a really good job of summing up what J. Cole was trying to say. And I think if J. Cole had asked you to write it, it would have actually been an okay song. Unfortunately, George doesn't make music, and J. Cole made, and George doesn't make J. Cole's music, and J. Cole made a shitty song, and he's doing cope now, and he's backpedaling and he's PR teaming, and it's funny because this was not meant to be about J. Cole.
He doesn't deserve this shit.
Listen, okay, so it doesn't matter.
Anyway, J. Cole's out.
It doesn't matter because on April 8th,
he's on the beach.
He's calling it a UAV. on April 8th, what was that fucking laptop? Anyways,
it was just a protective. It was a MacBook, but it was he has a MacBook on the beach.
Shit at a trapper keeper.
He doesn't want sand to get in it. He's on the beach.
Why do you have a laptop on the beach?
So he can make music
on the beach.
It's J. Cole. What do you?
Why is he on the beach?
Idea.
Yeah, he brings a little Zen rake and he combs the sand as he thinks of his. Yes, he does.
Shut the fuck! I don't. Oh my god! He's not even in this beef anymore because on April 8th at Dreamville Con or whatever the fuck it was,
Dreamville Con.
He backed out. He backed out and he said, "You know what? My bad. Didn't even really believe in that stuff." And you can kind of tell too when you listen to 7 Minute Drill, it doesn't sound like he wants to be there. I think we can agree on that. It doesn't sound like he's committed to it.
No, he's open to friendly competition, but he doesn't want
He remembered he was conflicted.
Yeah, exactly.
Misusing his influence. That is true. Yes, someone should write that. So that was on April 8th, and then now we are in beef country because on April 13th, this is 5 days afterwards, Push-Ups dropped. Now Push-Ups is the song that we had just started hearing the last time we were recording. Push-Ups, I have a little bullet point list here, so I'm just going to really quickly go through. We're not going to listen to it or go super in depth at the moment, I don't think, unless someone has something they want to sort of talk about with Push-Ups. But Push-Ups, Drake says he's the hit maker and people were being nice to his face backstage. He says, this is my favorite line, "How the fuck are you big stepping with size 7 men's on? That's hard." For me, it's very little brother on varsity team. He talks about Kendrick giving up 50% of his royalties. He says Mr. Morale sucked, more or less.
That's where he lost me.
He calls out of course he did. He talks about, he kind of brings up Kendrick making songs for Taylor and how Kendrick's gripe is that Drake's a pop star, and yet Kendrick turns around and makes music with and for pop stars too.
It's valid,
and that's fair.
I mean, you got Imagine Dragons.
I had to give that to him.
Yeah, and that's not unfair.
Drake's says, never featured with pop stars.
He says this is a notable thing. So I want everyone who's listening, who's a part of this, to put a pin in this. He says, "quote unquote," this is 20v1, and he's talking about being ganged up on, and that's
also valid.
And that's something to put a pin in because that is something that follows Drake for the rest of this beef. He calls out Metro with arguably the funniest line so far in this beef, where he says, "Metro, shut the fuck up and make some beats."
That's shut your hoe ass
shut
up.
Your hoe ass up.
Which is important. Which is important. I like that he calls him a hoe.
He calls him a hoe
because it kind of like it really. Again, I'm gonna sidetrack it a little bit.
Sure.
This 20v1 thing scared me at first.
Yeah.
Because we knew that Kendrick was really the big hitter going at Drake.
100%.
Now, Future had some lines for Drake. Rick Ross had some lines for Drake on that first album.
Rick Ross had some lines for Drake.
Yeah, absolutely.
BBL Drizzy called his mommy on
me. Exactly. But this 20v1 thing really scared me at first because I was thinking about it. I'm like, this could be his out of a direct Kendrick fight.
Yeah.
Drake could win if he plays the Thanos card. If he's like, if I'm going to tackle all these people at once, it'll dilute the water and it'll make what Kendrick's saying seem really not important.
Yep.
Like he could spin it so that it looks like, I'm beating some people here and there, but if Kendrick's going to come at me like, ooh, you knocked a man while he was down sort of approach.
Yeah.
And that could have really worked for him.
Yeah.
And calling Metro a hoe is funny because Metro's the one that organized all this. So saying that like all these rappers are coming and he's hoeing himself around was like, that was a funny angle. But that freaked me out when this first dropped. I'm like, ooh, that's a smart avenue he could go down.
Yeah.
I think my thought with that was why is it you against everybody? Why do you have so many enemies?
That too.
And it's a good point. And it's a very good point. And Kendrick touches on that later. He says, I'm speaking for the culture. If anything, Kendrick sort of has an interesting angle later on in this and we'll get to that. Kendrick says like, hey, it's kind of that energy of like, hey, we all think this. I'm just the one with enough balls to say it. It's really interesting actually. Cause he sort of in his way, we spoke about this earlier. Kendrick at some point during this, and it's a very clear point. And again, this is sort of the term of the podcast so far. We'll get there. Kendrick later on does this thing, and it's a really technical term, so I'm going to try and use it correctly. He makes this not fun. You know what I mean? And like, I still love it, but like, Meet the Grams is not fun. Just to put it out, Meet the Grams is not fucking fun. So at some point, this turns really
uncomfortable,
very extremely, and I look forward to that one. But again, we sort of spoke about it earlier. At some point, he makes it not fun, and yet Kendrick is still, I believe, the song before that, he's talking about, no, I'm not speaking for me. This is all of us. So Kendrick kind of has that out within himself. He's like, I'm going to be a dickhead, and I'm going to do it for the greater good type shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he said even your own people are talking this about you.
Exactly. So moving on, he calls out The Weeknd, who for some reason I have in my notes as Abel. We're not close like that. He implies that Whitney has been sleeping with Kenny's bodyguard. Did I get that right? Is that kind of the implication?
I mean, it's hard to say if he was directly accusing her of sleeping with the bodyguard.
It's an implication. It's an implication. It is.
Sort of. I mean, he just says
it's an implication that she cheated and has cheated or has been cheating for sure.
But it's also just a punchline because of the whole, was it Whitney Bobby or Whitney Houston? There's like something. Yeah. Some Whitney has like an album called Bodyguard.
He was alluding, and I feel like that was kind of, I even hate to say this, but that was kind of maybe like a Kendrick moment for him where he was alluding to something that would come out in the future because Whitney and Bobby are very clearly like, there's a lot of domestic shit within that. So I feel like he was kind of pointing to something. It was like his warning shot at Kendrick, essentially.
Yes. Yeah. I think what I will say is that I think with context further on, the way he digs into the Whitney thing, I think it's not, again, and you can't know this at the time. In a vacuum, I understand what you're saying, and it is sort of the Whitney Houston thing. But I think with what we know later on, again, hindsight 2020, but going later on, you know what he's saying about Whitney. It's not, there's not a, at the time, he has deniability. Yeah. But what we know is he's not.
At this point, I took it more of like with the Pusha beef, things got ugly when I mentioned Virginia Williams. But I need to redeem myself for that. You got to remember, Drake's coming off of a loss, but
a big loss, a big one.
But people still remember Drake as the diss track king. He won a Grammy for Back to Back. Like, you know, people still see him as like the diss track god. It's just that he's coming off of a major loss. So I think his mentality was, I'm going to do the same thing I did with Pusha, but I'm going to win this time.
Whoa.
And that's the best redemption that he could possibly have if he was able to pull it off. But, you know, we'll get there. We'll get there.
So he calls Rick Ross old and says, and he calls him a hanger-on in a lot of ways. He says, he pretty much does call him a hanger-on. He's like, you know, you're popular because I made you popular.
Which is fair.
Not unfair.
That's pretty valid.
Yeah.
He says too, he's like, this is just the beginning. He calls himself a demon, which is so cute. It's pretty simple. This is about as simple as these disses are going to get in terms of like their feel and stuff. It's really catchy. It's very much a probe. It's very much like okay, we're doing this. Throw the glove. Very much that.
Yeah.
So that happens. Champagne. So Rick Ross, who apparently in addition to everything else doesn't fucking sleep, because that same day, and I believe he posted an Instagram story of him at the studio on April 13th. He dropped Champagne Moments. A few hours later, this is where the sort of really quick bullet points are coming, because I listened to Champagne Moments, liked it, didn't listen to it again. 6 days later, Drake does what I think is his first. I don't even think it's a conversation. His first really big misstep here. On April 19th. Drake, being the sort of trolling force that he is trying to be, drops Tailor-Made Freestyle. This is the song where he uses AI, Tupac, and Snoop, and basically
Big mistake.
a huge mistake in a million ways. And he, for someone, by the way, for someone who has ghostwriter allegations, to then make a joke about, hey, these two legends of the school of hip hop that Kendrick worships at the fucking feet of, I'm gonna fucking use them as mascots, more or less.
Funny.
And for somebody who was going so hard against AI, like literally a month and a half ago, Drake was crying because somebody made an AI song about him. So like, what the hell was that?
Right. And it also takes wind out of the 20v1 sales, because it's like, you're talking about this being unfair and slanted. You're literally fantasy drafting people to be in your corner. You're fantasy drafting.
This is the beginning of a theory of mine. Okay. This isn't an entirely original theory, but it's something that I subscribe to heavily, where the biggest difference between Drake and Kendrick in this beef is Drake's label and his situation.
Yeah.
Push-Ups is the exception, because Push-Ups was kind of had like a messy sort of like mixtape rollout where like it had the one version with the one beat and then it came out officially a little bit later.
Yeah.
But Drake, and I don't know how much of this is his fault and how much of it is Universal's fault, but a lot of the way he moves and the way that he's been putting out this music tells me that there's some sort of big wigs behind him sort of guiding his pen.
Yeah.
Kind of seeing this stir up and trying to use him to capitalize on it. And I think if we're getting really conspiracy theory with it, this AI thing was a part of that. They're like, if we put it out in this context and people have an excuse for it, we'll see how people feel about the AI thing. We'll see how quickly Tupac comes to sue us. We'll see how quickly.
Well, he's not going to be doing much of the suing, but I see your point.
Yes. But I'm not saying
that's interesting. That's an interesting theory.
Yeah, I'm not saying
there's
it's not
definitely
Drake's
some weight
fault.
behind that.
Absolutely. And I'll get deeper into this when we get to like some of Drake's later stuff. Like I think his label is a lot more involved in the second half of this.
Yeah.
Piece, but
100%.
yeah.
I'm baffled by the choice, because he comes in that song, and I listened to it once, and honestly, this is sort of not related, but if he's going to bring in AI, I'm going to say my piece about it too. I'm grossed out by that. I'm grossed out by it for a million reasons. It's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to Tupac first and foremost. It's disrespectful to Snoop Dogg also first and foremost. Disrespectful to music, disrespectful to art, disrespectful to rap. It's disrespectful to everything.
I'm really surprised Snoop didn't come out and say more.
Yeah.
Like his little video where he was just kind of like, whoa, okay, I'm going to bed. I'm surprised he didn't say more. Cause if I was like an OG in rap and there's a rap beef happening and then my likeness and voice is used on a song and I did not say it, like, I'd be fucking pissed.
Right.
Like I'd try to sue Drake, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe they have like a relationship that I don't know about, that he let that one slide. But I'm surprised there wasn't more waves in connection to that.
Yeah.
I mean, Snoop Dogg's also a notorious like AI and NFT supporter.
Yeah,
so maybe
that's
he just
true. Yeah, I
he
forgot
just
about
didn't think it was that deep. But also, I think the worst part about doing shit like that is you're right. It's completely disrespectful.
Yeah.
And obviously Drake knew it was completely disrespectful.
Sure.
And this was his big like. This is a misstep. To use wrestling terms, this is where Drake decided that he was going to play the heel.
Okay.
And he completely underestimated how much Kendrick was already a hero.
Yeah.
Like he thought that this was going to be like, ooh, I get to be the sassy bad guy. And it's like, no, we already don't like you.
It's true.
Doing this is just going to make us love Kendrick even more when he doesn't do that shit.
Right.
I think Drake could have easily, like I said earlier, if he played the 20v1 thing right, and he played himself as not necessarily the victim, but as sort of like the underdog in the situation, like those Kill Bill memes he was posting and shit. If he's like if he painted himself as the up and coming underdog, like the hero of this like giant attack on him, but instead he chose to go the villain route.
Yeah.
And that's completely wrong, because you're already the villain.
Right.
You're the one everyone's attacking. Don't make yourself more unlikable. It was.
I think it really goes to show too, and proving Kendrick's point throughout this whole beef, that he doesn't really even understand the culture of the game that he is in.
Exactly.
I don't know why he thought that going after a West Coast artist. Okay, so he has a beef with a West Coast artist, and then he uses Tupac, who is more or less the West Coast gone. and he disrespects him by using AI. Like, he proves Kendrick's point. Like, you really don't know what you're doing, and you really don't know the temperament and like what's going on here, because that was gonna, like, he thought he was doing something, but all he did was shoot himself in the foot.
Right.
Because if the West Coast already didn't rock with you, they're certainly not rocking with you now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's and first of all, I appreciate you using the wrestling term. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Did I do it right?
Yeah, you used it very correctly. What I would say is, and one day we will incorporate more wrestling, and that day will come, and boy, will it be glorious. Sure. But what I will say is, I think too, it's interesting because it's a very intentional. Heal is the exact word, but it's a very intentional him trying to get under his skin, because you know how much Kendrick reveres certain West Coast gods, as you say, and just like cornerstones of the culture, right? And who, again, as you say, who's a bigger cornerstone of West Coast culture than Tupac? I mean, the only person you could argue, Snoop Dogg or Dr. Dre, and he's not going to do Dr. Dre. He's going to do Snoop Dogg. He just is. So I don't know. I'm grossed out by it, and frankly, I don't want to talk about it anymore because I'm really grossed out like a lot by it. And again, this isn't even some like moral futzing. Like I don't morally. This goes way darker and deeper, and I don't have the same level of issues. It's not a moral quandary in terms of like the using a dead guy's voice. That's fucked up and gross. It's it's oh my God, I could do a whole fucking show about how much I hate AI. It's the AI shit, and it gets me, and we're not going to talk about it anymore, so we're going to move on to the next part of the beef, which is a much less controversial thing. Kanye then decided he wanted to make music, and so he did a remix of Like That on April 19th, and I can't comment on that because I didn't listen to it.
Really?
So
I didn't listen to it either.
So George, give me a synopsis. What happens?
Look it up. Let's just read the lyrics. It's very short. We'll read them out. Honestly, he doesn't even rap them anyway. It's mostly like spoken word, if anything.
The Inter Milan Ultras. That sounds racist. What is that?
You know we had to get the hooligans up here. We gonna take this pussy out. Yo, Dot, I got you. That's the intro. So he's saying, Kendrick, this is the Avengers Endgame portal opening up, and Kendrick's walking out with Kanye's walking out with the Fourth Reich, and they're emerging from this portal. Except the difference here is that Kanye thinks he's Black Panther. He thinks he's like a huge character, but he's Ant-Man, and he's Ant-Man with his like army of little wasp minions coming in. But can't stop, won't stop. I just fucked your bitch in the Sean John tank top. You treat a bad bitch like she average. I treat a bad bitch like a fat bitch. Shouldn't have never let me get money again on my Cat Williams when they get funny again.
Okay, fine.
See, they tried to count me out. I like that. Nice little play on words, Kendrick songs. Okay. They just hit a number one, we write back, making it about him. 500 down on the bottom, 500 up at the top. Don't know what that means. Titanium grills, call that smile on the rocks. Okay. That's not bad. That's not bad. It's not bad, but what does that have to do with any of this shit?
No, nothing.
I done had, it says that. I done had everything that you able to got. I invented drill too. I ain't gonna lie, it was chop.
So that's, I think, and if I could put an interjection here.
That's a bold claim. He invented drill?
Apparently.
Well, I mean, it did originate in Chicago, so I guess it's possible. But but however, in this line, Kanye backtracks saying the creator of drill music is actually Chicago producer Young Chop.
Yeah,
so he takes it back immediately. Yeah. Okay.
So hey, you know what? He's learning.
Yeah. Another one, volume 1, then it's 2 and 3, Vultures on repeat.
Thank
so
God.
just mild interruption for product placement
just
there.
So you know.
Still feel like Pablo, drug dealer chic. Yee. Pluto sent the drones. It hit like Metro Beats. All right, shout out. It's a rap. Okay. Where's Lucian? This is the best part. Where's Lucian? Serve your master. So Kanye is actually the one, to give him any credit, to give him a crumb. He's the one who throws in the universal shit. Because Lucian, how do you pronounce that last name?
Grange.
Lucian Grange is the CEO of Universal, which is what Drake is signing.
Okay, so that's a nod to like more of an industry thing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Very interesting.
So Kanye is the first one who enters that into the discussion. You caught a little bag for your masters, lifetime deal. I feel bad for you. You also out of sight, out of mind. I can't even think of a Drake line. That's just false.
I mean, that's just not real.
Yeah, it's not real.
You fucking had this one on repeat, didn't you?
And then the final two lines
go ahead.
here.
He's gonna love this.
I can't even think of a Drake line. Play J. Cole, get the pussy dry, play this shit back 130 times.
Bet you money 130 is a Nazi number. I'll bet you fucking money. I will bet you.
So nothing of substance there besides him, you know, essentially throwing the idea out there that Drake is serving his master, which is Universal.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Thoughts on that?
I wasn't saying much.
Yeah, thoughts on that?
I mean, like a couple of lines that I was like, okay, but a lot of them had nothing to do with the beef. So there's that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's interesting that he kind of was the first person to bring Universal into it. Yeah. But I think Kanye's been talking about that a lot over the years, you know, how there's a lot more going on behind the scenes in the corporate world of rap or music in general. So I think maybe he's more conscious of that and brings that to the table.
Yeah.
So maybe that's probably the only thing of substance that he brought there.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Last time not the last time.
It's
one of the last time I'll mention his name. J. Cole.
This fucking guy.
I think the timing has passed. I mean, it could still happen, but this was peak when everyone was like clowning J. Cole for bowing out.
Yeah.
I think if he came in and just dogged Kanye on a diss track, he could have put himself back in the conversation for sure. I think this was completely valid.
Yeah.
I think this was a fucking royal flush for him if he just put out a Kanye diss track, completely justified, could be as disrespectful as he wanted, and just destroyed him rapping wise. He could have really rebounded.
I just think taking on Kanye is just like probably the biggest headache, you know, because I don't think he's going to come and destroy you with verses because like, you know, that's just not the case for him anymore. But like, do you really want to take on that man who doesn't sleep and is like constantly going on rants and like, you know,
he's already on his bad side.
It's true.
That's true.
For some reason.
I kind of wonder about it because, and this is not a Kanye podcast. It's ironic that we've spoken about him so many times. Yeah. I'm intrigued by that idea that you just presented because I wonder, I don't think anyone would really contest, and certainly no one currently sitting in this room would contest that Drake is as good a rapper as J. Cole. I don't think anyone would really contest that.
What?
Like I don't. What I'm saying is,
I think I misheard you.
Drake. No, I said Drake. I shouldn't have said Drake. Kanye. Okay. I don't think that just completely flubbed up. He's on the mind. I don't think that my body's rejecting Kanye's name. I don't think that anyone would argue that Kanye is lyrically on the same level as J. Cole. I don't think anyone would argue that. And I really, you could argue about different phases of Kanye's career, what he was doing. I don't think there's really a time many people would argue they were on the level lyrically. No. But I wonder sometimes if something like that were to happen, if Kanye is able to, in any part of his psychotic brain, which is an unfair term for a mentally unwell man, but he's not a good person.
No, he's not.
No, so it's fine. But I think that I wonder if he's able to, in some part of him, flip a switch where he's like, oh, I now have something to direct my ire at. Because Kanye's issue, amongst his other issues, one of Kanye's things is he's incapable of making a cogent point because he's just sort of standing around in the dark, swinging around looking for a light switch. He's not directed at anything. Yeah. He doesn't have the light. He doesn't have something he's going towards. I think I wonder if J. Cole gave him a target, if he was able to, this is a complete getting away from everything we're going to talk about after this. I'm wondering if Kanye having a target to swing at would direct his unbelievable work ethic, because you can't deny that, unbelievable work ethic and psychopathy at one target, if he would just be like, okay, well, I'm going to release 3 albums over the course of 11 years about you. Something like that.
I just don't think that Kanye is able to, I think that it would, like it could give him something to target at and focus on, but I just don't think that he would be capable of coming out with anything that where he doesn't go at other people and other things and pisses people off.
That's a good point.
You know, I think that he's just like mad at everybody and everything. And he could probably like hone in for about maybe like 5 or 6 bars about Cole. And then he'll just get sidetracked and start talking about something else and somebody else.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a lot of Kanye's music, even when he's focused. He's talking about like 15 things at once, even on a song that's supposed to be about one thing. Like to actually tie it into Kendrick, his song No More Parties in LA, where everyone who walked away from that track said, yeah, Kanye outversed Kendrick there. Everyone thought that. No, that's, I mean, hey, if you believe Kanye, that's what he says. And it's not that Kanye's verse is better. Kanye's verse is longer. And it's not just longer. Oh my God, is it so fucking long? I heard No More Parties in LA again recently. You would not believe how long Kanye fucking talks in that song.
I'd have to re-listen to it. It's
oh
been
my
a minute.
God. Oh my God. You're forgiven for not fucking listening to him. He just came on shuffle the other day. I swear to God, Kanye has about 3 minutes on that song of him going. Kendrick has maybe 45 seconds. Like Kanye, all this to say, and this is the last thing I'll say, as you say, Kanye's kind of always talking about every ghost that he thinks he has in the room with him. Always. He's still talking about Adidas. He's still talking about Nike. He's still talking about Kim. He's still talking about this. He's still talking about that. He still feels this way about this. He never forgets, but he never lets go of shit. And that's
Yeah.
This is not going to be a deep dive into his psyche. I don't get paid enough and we don't have the time. It's just, I don't know. It's interesting. So Kanye releases his say on the matter.
And then gets completely washed out.
It gets completely washed out by 11 days is the wait between this action and everything else. Drake's on Instagram. He's making story posts. Where you at? Academics.
He's sending
Twitter fingers.
Twitter fingers. He's sending marching bands outside Metro Boomin's club.
So that's funny. Academics, who the most unlikely puppet that you could ever see in this beef.
He's like the I can't think of a specific movie analogy for it, but he's like when the supervillain's sitting up in his castle and he has like a weird little like deformed creature in a cage.
He's
that
the
just kind of
Igor. No, he's Igor.
him. Yeah,
He's Igor.
Exactly.
100% he's Igor.
He's like brings Drake his chalice every now and then. He's like, yes, kill them, yes,
yes, master, yes. Yeah, very much, very like that. Well, we have to wait 11 days, and then this is where the return is sent, and you got to wonder, to be a fly on the wall for some of those 11 days at the Kendrick Lamar camp, because my God, does he come out swinging? Because on April 30th, again, not to say it again, this is the last time I'll say it, 11 days after that action, Kendrick Lamar drops Euphoria. Now, what we now know based... Shut the fuck up. What we now know, which is based off of this tweet that we were discussing earlier, this was apparently meant to be 19 fucking minutes long.
Crazy.
Insane.
I want to hear the other 19. Like, I want to hear the whole 19 minutes, to be honest.
At its at what we got, it is a 6 and change minute song. Correct me on that. 6 and change minutes.
Yeah. It's the best one of the beef.
It's
Agreed.
It's great. Okay, so I'm out. I'm okay. It's great.
We're gonna rank these diss tracks at the end of this, and he hard disagrees that Euphoria is not the best one.
I think it's number 2.
He likes Family Matters the most.
That's not true. That's a lie. That's a lie. I'm the only one who seems to think that Drake came out of this winning. So that's a joke. That's a joke. So for starters, and this is probably the lightest thing that he says in this entire beef, Kendrick immediately calls Drake paranoid instantly, which isn't really even unfair based on the 1v20 shit he was talking about.
Absolutely.
So,
or his repertoire of music over the last like 3-4 years.
Right. And this is the other thing that he says immediately, and I have in big letters in parentheses, foreshadowing. This is interesting, and you can put a pin in this too. Remember it for the rest of what we talk about for the next 5 hours. When we're done with this podcast, it's going to be about 5 hours long. He says immediately, in no uncertain terms, I know what you're going to say. You're going to lie about my family. I know that. And instantly...
Listen to Mr. Morale.
Exactly. And instantly pin in that, because you can spin that to mean a million things. You can say from right there, I think that's the 5th line of this first song that he comes back with. It's like the 5th or 6th line. It's really short, and he hasn't even done the beat switch yet. The controversial beat switch. He hasn't even done it yet. To me. He hasn't even done it.
What?
We'll get there.
Sorry.
Shut up. Shut the fuck up. He says, and he hints and he implies, I know what you're going to say because I have a mole. I know exactly where your head's at and what you're bullet pointing going to talk about, which is interesting. He says Drake's a manipulator. He implies that he doesn't gel with his black roots like he does with his white roots. He sort of hints at it being fetishistic, as I believe you said earlier as well. He calls him boring. He calls him a faker. He calls him a hypocrite. I have a line here that I fucking love. He says, the very first time I shot me a Drake, the homie told me to aim it this way. I didn't point down enough today. I'll show you I learned from those mistakes. So he's saying in the rap beefy way, I'm going to fucking kill you. But he also says there, you're not on my level. And that's sort of this whole thing. Drake has this little brother who made varsity, but is still not as good an athlete as his older brother. He's got that mentality about him. You know what I mean? It's a very energetic song. It's got a lot of personality to it because Kendrick has about 5 inflections and stuff. And again, I don't know, actually, I'm actually curious what your opinion on this is, Kira. Like, listening to this side by side with the Drake stuff, it just does so much damage to him as a threat. He sounds like Yippee. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I mean, I think Kendrick is like the master of switching up the beat and you know, everything in the middle of the song or a couple of times. And like, I mean, Drake tries to do it. Cole tried to do it in 7 Minute Drill. And it's just like, he is really the master of that.
Yeah. Yeah. He's taunting Drake and J. Cole. The YNW Melly line, where he talks about, he basically says, they're my friends. And in 8 lines, I'll explain what I mean. 8 lines down, he says, if they show signs of not being with it, and this could also be a hint at J. Cole, a wink, and like, hey, you dodged a bullet here, pal. Fucking you should send Schoolboy Q an edible arrangement or something. Like, that's wild. He basically says, he says, I'll kill you. Like YNW Melly. I will kill my friends over this.
Yeah. The interesting thing about that line too is every name that Kendrick mentions in this song, and not to go down the glazing route of like, oh, everything he does has quintuple meanings and all that, like, which I do believe is true, but every name that he mentions, YNW Melly, Sexy Red, give me another one, there's more.
J. Cole,
sure. But the people who have been outside of this beef are all people who have reacted to this beef in some way during those 11 days. Like YNW Melly, despite being in jail, somehow got a phone, somehow got on Instagram, and somehow made a post because he thought the Melly Mel line and like that was about him.
Whoa.
And he essentially said, like, I don't know why Kendrick's talking about dissing me when he's like, oh, I'll crash out like fuck rap, diss Melly Mel if I have to.
He talks about Yachty too.
Yeah, exactly. But YNW Melly went on Instagram and said, like, I don't know why Kendrick's saying this shit about me. So I think Kendrick specifically mentioning YNW Melly here is also just like a nod to that. Like, I'm on Instagram too. I see this shit too. I see everyone talking about this shit. Like, it's not just Drake. Like, Sexy Red.
Even him saying I'm what the culture is feeling in a way is him nodding to what's going on online. Because if you're online, like at that time, everybody was supporting Kendrick off top, except for obviously the Drake stans. But like it was resounding.
Yeah. And most interestingly, out of this whole thing, Kendrick has never said a single word that wasn't in song.
It's true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
It's true.
Even when he's announcing the tracks, he drops a link on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a single word has been outside of song besides the actual song titles.
Yeah.
But Drake's the one who's online, yet Kendrick's the one who's making all these connections with the things online.
Right. And it's, by the way, and this is kind of a more of a admin note. You guys can jump in whenever to talk about a point too. Like please do. I don't want this to just be me reading down a timeline. That's not what this is meant to be. So the YNW Melly shit, Kenny says, don't turn this personal. I know shit about you too. Which is so scary. That's so scary. Like to hear Kendrick Lamar say, "Hey, by the way, if you want to turn this dark, we can go fucking dark." That's horrifying. So this is after the beat switch, which it does better on re-listen. I didn't like it initially because I feel like he leans into the Baby Keemisms and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I didn't love.
That's his new style, though.
I didn't love it, but it's not bad. I mean, Kendrick, I'm of the belief that Kendrick cannot make a bad song. His worst stuff is just mid.
He's got some bad songs.
I'm a bad person to ask because everything he does is good to me. So
yeah, I mean, I think
I love it all.
I think you should give Love off of Damn another listen. I hate that song.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I don't like that song.
That song's
God
cheap.
is right there. God
It's that. Hey, did I say that made God good?
I do. I like Love. Unpopular opinion.
I like Love too.
What the fuck is
I also like Loyalty. I know your feelings about Loyalty.
I don't love Loyalty. It's not that bad. It's mid.
Toby's never experienced Love or Loyalty. That's why he doesn't vibe with these songs so much. Sorry.
Do you want to stop the recording and we can like have this out?
What is this? A 20v1? What is
this? I feel like I'm being shit. So anyways, he says that, and by the way, at this point too, something that we didn't really mention, but I think it's kind of important and cogent to mention this. Kendrick has been called at this point the boogeyman. He's giving a lot of real boogeyman energy, like, and what I mean by that, he's scaring people just by appearing. The idea that he could appear. We were talking about it on the last podcast episode. We were like, what the fuck is he gonna say? What is he gonna say? It's like when it's like little brother at home breaking like a novelty plate that dad holds dear, and the older brother's like, oh, when dad gets home, this is gonna be bad.
You hear the car pulling up in the driveway,
and you're like, right. That's what the ad lib was. And he's sort of like, you're waiting, and you're like, this kid is gonna fucking get it. He's gonna get it, right? And and God Almighty does he. So
and he gets it.
And he keeps getting it, and he keeps getting it, and he
gets worked.
Yeah, he gets mugged. So he calls Drake a culture vulture. Then there's another beat switch. He says Drake called a cease and desist on Like That. He has a bunch of really fun inflections here, and this is kind of the issue when you're rapping with Kendrick. You're actually rapping against 5 different fucking people at least on any song.
Well, I mean, he asks himself if he can bleed him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he takes a moment and he's like, wait, I'm going to ask myself, can I go? Yeah, okay, cool.
It's fucking perfect. Imagine for a moment, you're out on a street fight and there's this guy who's smaller than you and you're like, you know what? I'm drunk. I can beat this guy up. And then he starts looking over his shoulder and talking to himself. Imagine. You're like, what the fuck is he doing? So it's just really, again, this kind of comes with listening to All These again and listening to it next to the Drake songs. It's just so fucking fun and it's bouncy and it's so catchy. And then the tagline, if you want, the thing that everyone kind of walked away from the song with is, he says that Drake shouldn't say the N-word anymore. He just shouldn't say it. And he doesn't like when Drake says it. He says that he hates everything about him. And he says, you shouldn't say the N-word anymore. Just, you're not a rapper. Moreover, you're not even a black man. You shouldn't say it anymore. And you could argue, no, you couldn't argue. You can say this is a step up in intensity. This is,
of course.
If push-ups is here, I would say it's a very logical next step in the progression. And after all the shit that's been talking, it's understandable why Kendrick comes in at this volume. You know what I mean? Yeah. Thoughts on Euphoria before we move on to what Kenny does next?
I think personally that Euphoria is the best. Okay. And I think that he does a lot in it. And there's a lot of things. And I even tweeted about it because I've been listening to it since it dropped. Right. But there's something so small that I feel like a lot of people missed. But when one of the beat changes happening, he goes, remember? And I didn't fucking catch that. I didn't see anybody talking about it. But the way that the beat changes is very reminiscent of Worst Behavior. And he says it in the same way that Drake says, remember. And the song is called Worst Behavior. So Kendrick legitimately dissed Drake with one word. Just like one word.
Yeah.
Which is insane. But it also shows in Euphoria just how calculated he was. Because he said, cease and desist on Like That record. Oh, what, you ain't like that record? Back to back. I like that record. I'm going to get back to that for the record. And then 616 in LA comes out. Like he quite literally back to backed him. He's like, remember when I said that? And then here you go. I just fucking did it.
If we're going to skip ahead and read into it really deep, he also went back to back with Family Matters and...
Yes, he did.
And Not Like Us, and he got the record. He beat Drake's first day single streams record. He went back to back for the record.
He did.
For the record.
Yeah. He completely
crazy.
He sandwiched Family Matters with Meet the Grams. And it's so
I will say
go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Before we move on to 616 here, Euphoria is when... Was that a signal, or did you?
No, there was no. I was not. Sorry, there was a gnat or something.
Oh, okay.
I was not doing the drama teacher shush. I'm sorry. It's on me.
I just watched Whiplash the other day, so you just gave me some trauma.
Yeah.
I thought you were.
It's not my fucking tempo. Yeah.
Fucking Euphoria is the beginning of the peak when this rap battle was fun.
Yes.
He absolutely destroys Drake, but it's still like half of my excitement was like, I can't wait to see what Drake does to this.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
It's so friendly.
Exactly.
Well, it's not friendly, but it's friendlier.
Yeah. I mean, if we're thinking of this as like a Kill Bill or like an action movie, you know, at first everyone comes out and starts fighting Drake. Push-ups is Drake deflecting all these shots, fighting back. Euphoria is the boss fight.
It's entrance music.
Yeah, it's Kendrick coming down. You know, Drake just fought off all these ninjas. Kendrick comes down and he slashes him up. He doesn't stab him. He doesn't execute him, but he just slashes him up. This is when the, you know, in like a hero movie, when the character would go off and train for a 6-year montage or whatever, and then come back to the castle and fight Kendrick. But it just sounded like he was slashing him up.
Right.
It wasn't a kill shot. There was nothing like truly scathing. It's just, it's a greatest hits of everything that everyone's ever criticized Drake for.
Yeah.
With, you know, to discredit it a tiny bit, like nothing terribly new. There wasn't really anything within this diss track that wasn't said before by like a Pusha T or like the internet or anybody else.
Or Meg Thee Stallion.
Or Meg Thee Stallion.
You know?
But it was all stuff that Kendrick, you know, doing what he does best, he cohesively tied it together in a really fun way and made it as exciting and energetic as Push-Ups was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you actually queued me up really well there. 3 days later, we did not have to wait 6 years through the training montage, thank God. 3 days later, we get Kendrick Lamar's 616 in LA on May 3rd. This is released. What was May 3rd? Was that the Friday?
That was Friday morning.
That was Friday morning.
That was
this.
the beginning of the end.
That was. This is so. So this is an interesting little. You could call this the between rounds intermission between the stages of this beef, right? Because it's still not, it is still not house fire, holy shit, we need to really take a step back. It's not there yet. Yeah. This is another like, hey, if you're going to fuck with me, we can dance about this.
This is Kendrick saying, come on, I can do what you're doing. I can taunt you.
This is
like,
I think this is Kendrick saying, sit down.
Yeah.
I
really.
think 616 is literally him sitting down, looking Drake in the eye and being like, listen, just don't.
Yeah.
Don't, because I have shit and I'm going to say shit.
Yeah.
And you're going to regret it.
Yeah.
That was like his last warning.
Right. I think that's a really good read. I think, and also to kind of double back on what you were saying about the action movie, like a sort
I have more
stuff.
to say about that for this.
This is, for me, 616 in LA is the feint. And what I mean by that is he goes in and he's like, I'm going to get you from this angle. And then what happens later that night is Drake being like, oh, I knew he was going to do that. I studied that, slap the blade away. And then, and we'll get there. And then Kendrick pulls out like an AK and it's not a fucking sword fight anymore. So
I also think this is, I can't exactly describe how he does it, but I think this is the true definitive moment where Kendrick somehow flips it to where this whole time it seems like Drake's the underdog.
Right.
Like that analogy I just made. Kendrick is the boss fight. Drake gets there and Kendrick slashes him up. But this song sounds like the training montage for the underdog. It like the beginning, the first half of the song is him praying to God, God, give me the strength to go to war with this man.
that's so insane.
Somehow, because of this song, Kendrick flipped the mood to make him the one who needs the strength to go take down the big bad.
Right.
Instead of Drake being the wounded hero who needs to make a big comeback.
Right.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Yep. So 616 in LA is about 3 minutes and change. I think it's like 3:13 if you want to get down to the nitty gritty. That's just a claim. So it's already, it's so much dancier. It's extremely dancey. It's got a great beat. To me,
oh, the sample is just,
it's awesome. And this is genuinely, I'm thinking ahead. There is no other time we're going to mention him. This is very Life of Pablo Kanye era beat. It is. It just is.
You think so?
Yeah.
This sounds like it could have come off of Life of Pablo to me. So I love this beat. I think, and he illustrates it here again, actually. His greatest strength is his ability to use inflections and singing and beat selection where he adds texture and depth. There's like 15 ways that Kenny can get a point across. And frankly, Drake is struggling to master the flow that he's been using for 20 years.
100%. Yeah.
He's fighting the beat. Kendrick is allowing it to guide him in a way. Very, very intense. And so he calls himself a world traveler, and he basically says, I'm above all this. I'm here. I'm doing this. I'm on a boat. I'm doing that. More references to the color of Drake's skin actually hidden under that as well. Lots of double entendres. This is, again, I can't express this enough. This is not a substitute for listening to the music. We just don't have the time because we're already over an hour and a half in. We just don't have the time.
We'll try to keep this to 2 hours.
So we'll see. So
this is also where Drake's little minion Academics gets killed. This is
Oh yeah, he brings in
this is where
Igor catches a stray.
Yeah, this is where Igor gets thrown off the cliff.
And didn't he have like a 50 Cent moment where when he's listening to it, he's like, "What?" He's like, "Why do you say my name?" Like,
Yeah. Exactly. There's a still image going around of him just like pouring a giant bottle of I don't even know what it is.
It's like Sprite or Red Bull or something.
No, it's alcohol.
Is it alcohol?
I think it might be Hennessy or Tito's or something into like a red Solo cup on stream where he's just like
there's it's that split screen of him listening to Family Matters and getting to it, and then he hears Meet the Grams and he's just he's back in his chair like he just got shot. So
so Igor's dead.
Yeah, so Igor's dead. So he's got all this world traveler stuff. And this is sort of the thing, again, another moment. Put a pin in this one too. Remember this one, because this plays out before and after. This is a central point that can tie off to everything that's been said and everything that's going to be said. And it's really important. Drake says, or not Drake, not his song. Kendrick says, straight up, in no uncertain terms, I have a mole inside OVO. I'm getting fed info. And again, this ties right back into what he said before. I know what you're going to say. A light barb, something really light. I know what you're going to say because I can read you. No. I know what you're going to say because I'm smarter than you and I have info. He also hints, I don't even think it's much of a hint. He says at some point, I think in this song, you're trying to spend money to get info on me. And that's cute. I don't need to do that. I have info on you. He says that. He calls Drake a bully, which is so ironic after what he just said. He says Drake's entourage is trying to turn on him. They're waiting to feast on his corpse. Easily, this is the most straight to the point we get from Kenny. And again, this is the intermission. This is the layup to the rest of what Kendrick does. And again, any comments before we get again? And this is the opening meal for what ended up being about 36, 48 hours of the most insane thing to ever happen to hip hop as I've been alive. We can.
It was the calm before the storm, honestly.
Absolutely, we can make our comments now. The bomb has just been placed in the building. We haven't even gotten there.
Yeah. I listened to that, and I was speaking to my husband about it. Obviously, we were listening to it like all day, and I was of the opinion that Drake should just bow out, because I really don't know. Like, obviously, he doesn't have good friends. Drake has no good friends, because if he did,
he only had a
and they
schoolboy Q.
listened to that shit, he'd be like, "Bro, don't say nothing."
Yeah.
Say absolutely nothing and keep it pushing and just take the L, because the L he ended up taking in the end is so much worse than if he would have just bowed out.
Oh my God. Talk about setting fire to the fucking estate and driving off into the sunset.
Like, so bad.
No, that's a good point. He kind of muttered to me. Where was Lil Yachty?
Yeah, where was he?
Yeah.
Where was Sexy Red?
Where was Sexy Red?
SZA?
I will say,
doesn't fuck with Drake. Don't do that.
Nobody has come to bat for Drake, really, that he mentioned.
It's true. Academics did.
Which is interesting.
Academics was talking about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, Academics is...
Come on.
Birdman.
Mal from...
Birdman came out.
Mal, Rory and Mal. Mal came out for him,
and they don't count.
No, never mind. Whatever. I tried, Drake. I tried. So, same day.
That was a weird rant from Mal. I heard that.
I didn't hear it. I don't listen to idiots. So... Same day, with respect, same day. This is, I believe, mid-afternoon. I think this is probably the 4 to 5 p.m. window. Is that right?
No.
Later?
This is like close to midnight.
I don't think it's midnight.
It's late.
It's late.
It's late because didn't Family Matters... Well, no, I think it was like probably Family Matters dropped, I want to say probably around like 9:30 p.m.
I looked up when did Family Matters drop, and I got the sitcom, not what we're talking about.
Because I feel like Kendrick dropped at around 10:30. And the only reason I know this is because I was trying to sleep and my phone was going off and I ignored it. And when I woke up, it was my husband texting me
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
about what just happened.
No, that's how I knew it was that night.
So I keep just getting
Look at what time.
they dropped at the nights. No, I know. Let's see. Drake Family Matters. Is it going to be in the description here? Let's see.
So as we talk about this, I'm
May 3rd. It just says night. It just says May 3rd evening. So I'm willing to sort of, it doesn't matter a whole bunch necessarily.
I think this ties into, I'm going to find out what time it was.
Yeah, it ties into what? Go ahead.
This ties into the whole label thing.
Yeah.
Drake's diss songs have only come out on Fridays. Push-Ups, Tailor Made, Family Matters. And Family Matters is a weird one because it came with a huge budget.
Yeah.
It had a full edited
Music video.
edited music video with props, with location scouting, with
Lighting, jewelry,
a car
The Good Kid, Mad
compacting.
City Band.
Yeah,
Good Kid, Mad City
Yeah,
Band,
this is big budget. It came out on a Friday, and most importantly, it hit streaming immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately, it hit streaming.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
And that's a big difference from what Kendrick's been putting out, because that to me tells me, okay, this is the label getting behind this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if Drake has control over the timing that he drops his music necessarily. I don't know if Drake can just push a button and a song comes out, which is also why we'll get to it. I think Heart Part 6 took so long to rebuttal all that. But
Boy, was it worth the
this
wait.
screams to me, Friday night. I think this is why Kendrick dropped that morning, because he knew that Universal would push it out Friday night.
Yeah.
But he's like, we're going to have a big video. We're going to have a big pop. People are going to hear this when they're getting ready for the club. They're going to go out. They're going to talk about it. Some DJs are going to be really excited to play it.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. We're going to have the whole weekend to ride on it. Again, why Hard Part 6 didn't drop until Sunday night, because we need to let these streams rack up over the weekend. We got to break Kendrick's Euphoria record. We got to do it. I mean, he dropped on a Monday and he just got the most YouTube views in a day. We got to break that. Which is, again, another reason why it has a video to attract people to YouTube instead of Spotify or whatever else it was on.
That's true.
So the evening, I think 10 p.m., 11 p.m. window, because I went to bed early that night. So that actually sounds about right. So this is released the same day as 616 in LA, but it is later in the evening. It seems to imply that Drake may have heard Kendrick's two disses before they dropped. Now, notable background with this song before it dropped. Leading up to this, Drake had been implying that he was about to push, quote, the red button. Now, we assumed that he was going to have something in the tank that he'd been writing. We didn't know when he dropped this that this was the red button, but again, to reference the tweet that we spoke about, and this is assuming that tweet is real, and we don't know for sure, but it appears to be at least fairly likely that this is the big swing. This is the red button. This is the swing for the fences moment from Aubrey. So, this, and it makes sense because this is probably Drake's strongest retort. And disagree with me, Kira and George. If this, to me, this is where it starts to heat up. This is the match being lit.
This is where Graham gets cracking.
This is where. So this is. Oh my God! You actually just got me really fucking verklempt with that line. I don't know what the fuck to say to you. We're creative collaborators. You should run some of these behind, like by me at some point. You really should. I don't think you can just drop this on me.
Man.
What?
It's improv.
Yeah. And so
keep going.
Yeah, it's fine. So this is where the beef hits the grill. This is where the match gets lit.
Absolutely.
We're moving. So it's actually a 3-part song. The first part, it's a really great bounce, and it's somewhere between pop star and rapper Drake. Would you agree? Is that more or less correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think he puts pop star in the back seat.
You think so?
Pop star is there, but for strictly utilitarian purposes.
Yeah.
Pop star Drake is only coming out to make some of these lines catchy.
yeah, that's fair.
Which
Yeah, because he
works.
wanted it in the clubs.
That's
You
fair.
can tell that he wanted it in the club.
Exactly. But in my opinion, it works really well. I think this is, again, bold take, my second favorite song out of this whole exchange. I love this song.
Okay.
I love it.
It's good.
Dude, the
I like it.
energy's
It's good.
awesome.
It is good.
And I've said this to you earlier.
I hate it.
Oh, I think it's sick. I don't like tough Drake. I don't like the songs where Drake's buffing himself up.
Yeah, neither does Kendrick. He says it too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I agree with him there. But this one, he brings the energy I wanted to hear. It's not so much that I like that Drake's doing it. It's more so like, this is a good rebuttal.
Yeah.
This is a good, like, this is the energy I wanted to see on the back end of Euphoria. Bring me 3 beats. Bring me murder. That little section in the middle, some people actually lose this beef. A$AP Rocky gets destroyed. Rick Ross gets destroyed.
Yeah.
The Weeknd kind of gets destroyed.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of Drake's lines, especially in the middle, none of the Kendrick ones, but like, he's firing shots.
Yeah.
He destroys A$AP Rocky.
He gets him.
I like A$AP Rocky way better than Drake, but man, he got dogged in the middle of that song. It wasn't even funny.
Yeah. No, he says more or less, again, for those who didn't hear it, didn't catch it, he says something to the effect of, go model some clothes because you're not an artist right now. And then he says more or less, hey, you talk all this about having slept with someone that I was into. I fucked Rihanna. That he just said, he says more or less, I fucked Rihanna.
He said,
and
do the math.
And he says, do the math. And he says, if you talk to Rihanna right now, she'll tell you, don't go head to head with me. You're going to get your head split open, which, hey, some teeth there. So,
and also some,
but minimal substance.
It's still high school bully Barbs. That's still where he's at with it.
True.
This is where
at least with A$AP Rocky. At least with A$AP Rocky.
At least with A$AP, yeah, you can.
He says, I fucked your wife, shit lips. That's what he says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to be fair, A$AP Rocky did the exact same thing. He said, I fucked your baby mom first. And then Drake came back and said, okay, do the math who I was fucking back then too. I believe it. Which is valid. I mean, but also there's a part in the middle here where Drake addresses Future more directly. And that's a really interesting part. Because again, Future doesn't actually take any like disses. He doesn't get actually scathed by any of this, but it's just a sign that Drake really wasn't expecting this. And I think speaks to his general sense of unpreparedness, which we'll get into with the Kendrick words here.
Right. So his biggest underlying thing is he calls Kendrick's claim lies. And that's the thing that he always falls back on this whole time. He just says, you're lying. That you're lying. You're lying. Nuh-uh. Nuh-uh. No, that's not true. He's just, and what he's lying about, I'm not quite sure, but he could have just been preparing there. I'm not quite sure what he says he's lying about really, because these all appear to be things that Kendrick genuinely thinks. So I'm not sure, but he calls him a liar, very 15-year-old. So
Dave Free.
He says this is something too that will come back, and it does. You can tell it sticks in Kendrick's craw because he mentions it later. He says you're always rapping like you're about to get the slaves freed, which is something that sticks with him forever. And it's
when I heard him say that line when I was listening to, because I listened to all of this in bed in the morning with my husband, and when he said that, I said turn it off.
Yeah.
Like he just lost. He just lost by saying that.
It's another misstep, and again, this is unforced error after unforced error from him, and this is another one where immediately after he says this, the discussion for a lot of people stopped being Family Matters and what he said, and it starts being, hey, Kendrick said you're othering yourself from your identity as a black man, and now you're saying, hey, I'm othering myself from the identity of someone who. Again, othering himself from his identity as a black man. Again, he says
he quite literally says, "I'll be Zimmerman," which is like, what the fuck was like? Who in his camp let that go?
No,
because if you took out those two lines, I feel like, even though I hated the song and I hate Drake and I'll never support that man, I can say there would have been a little bit more. But he quite literally proved Kendrick's point.
Yeah, he did
in the worst way too.
Yeah. He just keeps giving him ammo here. And again, this is just part one. He says Kendrick's a fake activist who isn't helping Compton. He's again talking about the alleged infidelity. And he kind of implies that Kendrick's son might be illegitimate. I think I heard that right. He's not really, I wouldn't say that he's crushing the beat, but he's got a decent flow and there's some decent lines, and the beat is, again, every stage of this, the beats are compelling enough to be worth it for the beats alone, because he gets some sick beats to work with here.
And it's creative because each of the beat switches highlights a different dimension of Drake's career.
Right.
Like the first one is very modern, trappy, melodic Drake. The second one is that drill, aggressive Drake.
Yeah.
And the third one is very reminiscent of early Drake. Like it sounds a lot like Headlines to me, even if he's not rapping in that same style.
Right, right. Yeah, so in part 2, it's another good beat. It sounds, like you said, it sounds like a drill beat. Again, not killing it, but teasing bars. He says something about almost getting with someone that Kendrick was into. He talks about Rick Ross again, which, again, that's the theme for this whole thing. This 20v1 thing must have really gotten to him because he just cannot fucking focus, and he just talks about anyone he can. And granted, as you said, he gets some shit off. His talking to A$AP Rocky works, but again, this wasn't about the video.
He needed to focus.
The video is you crushing the Good Kid, Mad City van. What does Rocky have to do with that? You know, and it's just weird. And he talks about Rick Ross. He says Rick Ross is on Ozempic, which is funny. That's funny.
Jealousy's a side effect.
He said it's funny. It's funny. He said, and again, this is another moment to pin. He says, I know there's leaks in the OVO camp. He says that. He goes, which one of you motherfuckers is turning on me? So again, later on, when he says that the moles fed fake information, you have to wonder, okay, if that's the case, why even talk about the moles at all on this song as if they're real? Why would you talk about them like they're real on this song? If the moles are fake, why even bring them up?
Well, they could have been real moles, but the information he gave them could have been purposely.
Right, but it's just, exactly.
Yeah, I'm playing devil's advocate.
I don't understand why, if you're feeding fake information to moles, why even talk about them? Why talk about them?
But also, too, if we're feeding fake information, the last beef that you took the hugest L, where we found out about Adonis, why would you leak information about another kid? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. Out of all things you're going to leak that?
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Yeah,
that's bullshit.
Right, and his capitalization on that is legitimately just saying, oh, Kendrick, you believed those people who told you those things?
Yeah.
Much to consider. It's like, what are you talking about?
And to be honest, like 9 years ago, I remember them talking about him possibly having a love child. And it lines up. Like if you were listening back then and you remember that and you were like on Twitter and shit, they were talking that he had a daughter, a 2-year-old daughter somewhere in Miami. Like I remember all that shit. So it lines up.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think that Drake is smart enough to leak information, to be honest.
Fuck no, he isn't. So we'll talk about how stupid he is later, actually. So he's doing this thing where he's kind of trying to sound hard shelled and like a real killer type. And frankly, I just don't believe it. I really don't. It's a very scattershot section. The Weeknd catches more strays. Rocky, as you said, kind of gets a little bit eviscerated here. He talks about Kendrick a little bit in this section. He talks about Rick Ross on Ozempic. He calls Rick Ross a cop, which is funny because I think Rick Ross was a security guard. I don't think he was a cop.
Didn't he work in a prison?
Yeah.
He was okay, so he was a prison guard.
He wasn't literally a cop, but it's the same area of influence.
Well, the whole thing that kind of derailed his career is the fact that he kind of played off of a guy that was actually in prison.
Yeah.
And he was a guard in that prison, and he kind of took that persona and he ran with it in rap.
Yeah.
And lastly, he also says, or lastly in this section, he says, Baby Keem basically makes Kendrick's music better and tolerable. In part 3, it's another good beat. Lots of references to the whole this is something I did not even really know about until I heard about this. Lots of references to the whole Birdman, Wayne, Pharrell, Neptunes, Pusha T, the trickle-down beef, the inherited beef.
Trickle-down beef.
That's exactly what it is. It really is.
The grease.
It's true. He says, speaking of cease and desists, Kendrick tried to call and get tailor-made Freestyle taken down. Drake says that he basically put Kenny on by bringing him on tour with him. And then I would argue the bombshell, and again, this is match being lit, throwing it into the gunpowder. The bombshell of this song is him saying that Kendrick has gotten physical with Whitney. Now, and he also says, again, as a postscriptum, Kenny's dead. This beef's over. I'm going on vacation. Little does he fucking know. Which is so funny in hindsight. Little does he know. But the funny thing about that, what's interesting about that line there talking about getting physical with Whitney. I think that's meant to be if you want to use this term for this, and I understand why using it might be a bit unto or whatever. This is meant to be like the gem of the song. This is the cornerstone. This is where we're building the beef out from. We're building up to calling him a wife beater. What's weird is you could listen to this song and it's not that you wouldn't hear him say it. You could almost be forgiven for not thinking it was the thing he was most hung up about. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Like he talks about it in the third verse and he has one line dedicated to it and that's like it, you know? And at the very end, you have to go through the whole fucking song to get to it. You know? It's weird.
Yeah. I mean, there's a million reasons why that could be.
Yeah.
It could be that, you know, he just doesn't have the evidence to back something like that up. He also does bring it up in the first verse.
Yeah.
A little bit. He doesn't really expound on it, but he says something. It's just like a punchline in that one where he's essentially like, you know, is it self-defense if you're hitting your wife because she's bigger than you?
No, I think that's the third verse that he says that, isn't it?
It's like near the beginning of it, though.
I thought it was at the end.
Is it near the end?
I
swear he says something at the beginning. Where it's like at least hinting towards it.
We're going to find out, aren't we?
I think the line I just said is from the third verse, but I think he says something early on about it, too.
Even when you drop this, you should have molded. Nope. When you put your hands on your girl, is it self-defense because she's bigger than you? And that's verse 3.
Okay, go back to the top one. I mean, it doesn't really matter that much, but
That's him talking about Rocky. He says, shake that ass for Drake. That's lovely. Don't make it Dave Freeze. If your GM is your BM, secret BD. We're talking in okay. So you hate the girls I fuck. Yeah. This is great television here.
baby mama caption really screaming, save me.
You did her dirty all your life. Okay, so he said you did her dirty all your life. You're trying to make peace.
He made a whole album about that, so I don't know why that was a gotcha.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. We spoke about this on the last podcast. Kendrick has made about 1 million Kendrick diss songs. What can you say?
Exactly.
So I don't know. It's kind of rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. That's not the point. But we're sort of moving into a more aggressive thing, and the Whitney lines and the bringing up Whitney by name and the implication that Kendrick's son or one of Kendrick's kids is illegitimate, and all of this is really, I think, what gives Kendrick the green light to respond with his own red button. And some could argue 100%. The red button of hip hop.
Absolutely.
Right.
One of the most frightening listens I've ever really had. I listened to this at 5 a.m. when I was getting dressed. And
what a way to start the day.
Oh my goodness. I was pants on, shirt off, staring out the window, just frozen, just very like insane sort of feeling for me, you know, like actually that's a good topic. I feel like this is going to be very much a where were you when. What were you Kira, we'll start with you. What were you doing? Where were you when you first heard this? What was your reaction? How did it feel? What was it like?
So I just woke up and my husband was awake and he rolled over and he said, Kendrick dropped. And I said, what? He said, yes. And he played it and we're still in the dark. And like the first line hit and like, thank God I was lying down. Cause I just like, I laid down even harder. I was like, what the fuck did he just say? That was, I'm glad I was lying down for that song. I feel like that was the way you should have listened to that song for
100%.
Sure.
What about you?
I got home from a late shift and I was playing video games with my friend like really late. And I was a little bit under the influence.
Sure.
And I was getting texts from people and they were just links.
Oh God.
First they were Drake links. And then they started to turn into Kendrick links. And for like a good 30 minutes there, like we're in the middle of a game and I'm like trying to get out of it. I'm like, ooh, I'm tired. I don't know about another one. Like I'm not tired at all, but I just want to like go and listen to like he went to go like pee at one point and I'm like, okay, I have time. But then I looked at the track lengths. I'm like, fuck, these are both like 7 minutes. I don't have time. And eventually I got out and I was still not in a sober headspace, but I'm like, oh, this could be fun. Like these are diss tracks. Like maybe the high energy is gonna really rope me in. And I got the Drake one. And again, this could be factoring into my bias is why I liked it so much because it got me really hyped up. I was like, oh, this is great. Like, he's matching Kendrick's energy. Yeah. This is going to be awesome. I know that Kendrick followed this up. And I'm so excited. I can't wait to see what Kendrick says. And then I got to the Kendrick one, and I think the piano traumatized me a bit.
Yes, yeah.
I remember distinctly having like a little bit of an anxiety attack, like not an actual like genuine one, but the point where I'm like, I'm kind of waiting for this song to end because like I feel like I was being yelled at personally. Even though I'm on Kendrick's side, I've always been on Kendrick's side. When he started doing the you lied about like, all that shit, I was like, no, I didn't. I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry.
I would say it's apropos that we have a horror lover on the show with us today, because to me, listening to this back with the piano stabs, this is horror movie music.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
This is like anxiety inducing, like this like build up that something more is coming up. There's something around the corner. And it really plays into him calling himself the boogeyman.
Yeah. Yeah. You know? It really, you know what it is? When I was younger, I'll say it. I was a pussy. When I was younger, something. It's about horror movies. You don't have to support me. I'm better.
That's just me. I'm sorry.
When I was younger, I was horrified by horror movie shit. I was terrified by it. All of it. It really scared me, and it's probably because my brother was obsessed with it. So, one of the things that always got me was, I believe it's the Michael Myers theme, which is just that really fast-paced piano.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Listening to this, it feels like Kendrick is really taking cues from that theme. The stabs of how high it is, mixed with how slow it is, where it really feels like you're in a dark room and Kendrick Lamar is creeping towards you. And
that's exactly it. And creeping towards you.
And there's nowhere you can go. And it's a nightmare, so you're running really slow, and you're waiting for him to get you. And it's, again, this is another level. This is another reason why Drake was never going to be able to compete with Kendrick Lamar. And in hindsight, it was always going to be this way. Complexity wise, said it earlier, texture wise, the way this sounds. I don't think Drake is able to convey an emotion that he doesn't verbally say. I'm upset. He has a song called that. Yeah. He's not able to convey an emotion that he doesn't use his words for. And frankly, it has to be 3 syllables or less a word. He just can't. He's not complex enough. Kendrick Lamar is complex enough to say, hey, I remember being really fucking scared by piano stabs as a kid. I'm going to fucking freak. Frankly, Adonis shouldn't listen to this for a million reasons. He wouldn't even be able to hear the words because he would probably piss himself from the fucking... So... From the start.
I just can't wait for Adonis to play this when he gets grounded later in life by Aubrey.
Oh, yeah.
Really loud in his room.
Drake needing to get older and lay down a level of rules and discipline with his kids. Like, Adonis can say, yeah, so remember when you got cooked by that 5'6" guy? You remember that?
He's gonna have a nasty thesis project when he graduates college. That's
bring your father to work day. Hello.
I mean, this song really is kind of forcing Drake to be a really good dad.
Oh my God.
Because if he fucks up in any way, this song has him cooked by his own son. Like 15 years down the line, it's gonna come back and haunt him if he fucks up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So again, if you have been living under a Rick Ross-sized rock. This song released on May 3rd, less than an hour. I think it was 45 minutes after Family Matters. You would be forgiven for listening to Family Matters, sending out a couple tweets going, fuck, that's insane, but I got to go to bed, and falling asleep and missing what was the flamethrower to the drop of the match. That's what this is. So what this is, Meet the Grams, is it's about a 6.5, 7-minute song of Kendrick Lamar addressing every member of the immediate Graham family directly. He starts with Adonis, Drake's son, for those who don't know. And again, why are you listening to this if you don't know that? That's weird. Why are you this far into it and you don't know that? That's weird. Thanks for your support. Starts with Adonis. He goes to Drake's mom, mentions her by name. I forget her name. Whitney. Sandra. Not Whitney.
Not Whitney.
Not very much not Whitney. That would be weird. Sandra mentions Aubrey's dad.
Dennis.
Mm-hmm. Mentions, I believe after that,
the girl.
He goes to another unnamed child, this time a daughter, who is supposedly, if this is to be believed, 11 years old and possibly knowing Drake's her dad, possibly not. And then at the very end, as if to really slide the knife in, the last person he mentions is Drake, because he knows, and this is again a psychological game. He knows Drake is going to listen to that whole fucking song and wait until he talks to him, and he's gonna make Drake sit through 5 minutes of him undressing and brutally just assassinating his family. You know, and it's again to pull the curtain back even more. This is the one that I really didn't want to go back and listen to. You know, I listened to it the first time and it gave me like a stomach ache. You know, I didn't want to go back and listen to this, but I did. So again, we're 2 hours in. I'm going to try and get through this again. So this implies that Kendrick may have known about Family Matters before it dropped, which again would indicate confirmation of a mole in OVO camp, because he covers a lot of ground here. And he sort of goes right back at the Family Matters thing, and he drops it right the fuck after. It's not like he made it in 45 minutes. He had it.
It was in his pocket.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's very much a in case of Family Matters break glass type of moment. So and moreover, it ties into the foreshadowing on Euphoria, where he says he knows what Drake's going to do. He's going to lie about my family. He's going to lie about it. So I'm going to go at his family, and he knows it. So horror movie piano is very direct, extremely direct. The voice Kendrick uses, to me, it sounded remorseful. You know what I mean? It very much like I have to put a bullet in the back of someone's head. You know?
Yeah. It was a therapy session.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It was therapy as a weapon.
Yes.
He taking everything that got him about Mr. Morale. Like the tone of this. This sounded like, if you took Mr. Morale and flipped it into a different opposite dimension or something. This is him taking everything.
It kind of goes back to him knowing, I think he heard Family Matters before, and he wrote, Meet the Grams, and he wrote it in that tone. I mean, he brings up Mother I Sober in Family Matters.
Oh boy.
And the worst part is he brought it up wrong.
Yes.
He didn't listen to the song.
Yes, he did.
Was that in Family
And so
Matters?
he kind of schooled him with the Mother I Sober tone.
No. He
did,
he brings that up in a following song, and oh boy does he get it wrong. Oh boy,
Drake.
Oh boy does he complete the fucking trifecta of fucking up. So the lightest thing that he calls Drake on this song is he calls him a pussy and a deadbeat. Who had
I wouldn't say the deadbeat line is light. That delivery makes it evil.
It's lighter than the rest of it.
I don't know. He pulls out the Pusha T accent for
It's
that line.
lighter than George. It's lighter than the rest of what he says. No. We'll get there. No, we'll get there.
I don't know. I think the energy is what makes it so bad, because like he does a Pusha T accent. He comes at him with he's trying to invoke trauma. He's telling you, this is where you got all your trauma. Here it is. Again, I'm going to dress up as your worst nightmare and dance in front of you.
He calls him a sex trafficker on this song. It gets worse.
That's true. Yeah. All right. You got me there.
Sorry.
He tells Sandra that he thinks her son should die. So that's definitely...
Yeah.
He said
that one was wrong.
That's wild.
Thinks that him and Epstein should get beat up.
He says they should be in the same cell. So he said he talks to Drake's son, mom, dad, secret daughter, and to Drake himself.
Yep.
He calls Drake a manipulator. He's
master manipulator. Not the first time he said that either. He said it in every song. So
he
far.
says that Drake uses his dad more or less as a mascot for cred, which is again a comment on the race thing. He says Drake likes to throw rocks and play victim. True. He says straight up, Drake should die, and he should be again. Listen,
doesn't mince words. Legitimately says that.
The most confusing thing about that sentence is I think he puts an F in front of die, and I've been listening to it a couple times, and he says "die." It's weird.
Interesting.
It's wild. If you listen to it, I'm serious. He says that. He says he should be in a cell with Weinstein. He says that he fetishizes and hates black women. He has sex offenders on his label in his entourage that are around his son. He calls Drake a sex trafficker, and that's being liberal with what Kendrick said. And he just generally calls him a sex criminal. And again, here's the thing. This whole beef has been so double entendre, triple entendre, quad entendre, quintuple entendre. What I really appreciate about this is how fucking bracing and direct this is. He doesn't mince words. He doesn't want you to misunderstand it. He says Drake should die. I think he should die. He should die today.
Yeah.
We should kill him today.
I love that about Kendrick. I just love it.
You always need one person in your friend group that's willing to tell you how it is. If you think I should die, tell me. So, the coup de grace, and this is a coup de grace amongst coup de graces. The coup de grace, obviously, I guess, is the verse of an alleged daughter Drake has that he isn't acknowledging, and it brings to mind the meme of I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that 2 times in 2 separate beefs, Drake has had illegitimate children brought up. It's happened to him twice. Isn't that funny?
Pretty funny. Makes me think, what if he gets in another beef? Is there a third?
All right.
This is the thing. Kendrick, it's funny too, because Kendrick kind of says that. He says, there's more. There is. There just is. It's called condoms, Drizzy.
At least Future owns up all his strange.
I guess the hot sauce in the condoms doesn't work.
No.
So it's an insane unpacking.
Weird thing, the hot sauce and the condoms thing. Like, the fact that he's even like coming out and saying shit like that means that he had to have made a mistake that he's now trying to learn from at some point.
Well, it's funny because he said it specifically 9 years ago.
Yeah.
It's almost like he had just learned that lesson.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's a good point.
So
shout out Future for every year on Mother's Day tomorrow.
Yeah.
In 2 hours, we're gonna get 10 different tweets from Future thanking every single one of his baby mothers. Shout out.
I love it so much.
I've said for years, my favorite character, fiction, real, are assholes who, at the very least, they know they're assholes.
Yes.
Those are the cool people.
Yes.
So this is just an insane unpacking. It's really simple, but it's so scary, and it feels like his anger is bubbling under the surface the whole time, and you can tell because he gets to the lying part, and it almost seems like he's the most offended. Kind of what we were saying earlier. Yeah. He's the most offended by the fact that Drake isn't just being out there about it. Like if he was out there the way fucking Future's out there, he would be like, you know, at least you wouldn't be lying. But that's the one thing that he can't say. And it's almost like he's saying, you lied about this, you lied about this, you lied about this. That's how people can know that you're lying in your disses. It kind of seems like that's what he's going for there.
For sure. I think you can really feel like in that you lied about everything kind of like, verse.
Yeah.
As somebody who has so much rage.
Yeah.
He really brings that out. You can tell he's been holding on to that forever. And if you go back, there was a lot of whispers because yes, he did bring Kendrick on tour. And so he takes kind of credit for, blowing Kendrick up. Right. But pretty much right after going on tour with Drake, he starts dissing him. So he saw Drake back then for what he was. And that was like 13 years ago at this point, right? So he's been holding on to this shit and wanting to say it directly for 13 years. And I feel like in that specific verse, you hear that. Yeah. He just fucking says it with all of his might.
Yeah, no, that's a really good read. That's right on the money. And speaking of, I have that written down, the verse. He says, and this is verbatim, you lied about religious views, you lied about your surgery, you lied about your accent and your past tense, all is perjury. You lied about your ghostwriters, you lied about your crew members, they're all pussies. You lied on them. You lied about your son, you lied about your daughter, you lied about them other kids out there hoping that you're going to come home. He says he's disgusted and you don't blame him even, honestly, obviously, but he's addressing Drake there and he addresses him last. And it's really kind of, it's not even a song, it's a therapy session, like you said. It's a visceral unpacking. It's a threat. This whole song is a threat. He's literally just threatening him over and over. Yeah. He addresses him last and he says, you shouldn't have spoken about my family, which is kind of why I'm saying that you could argue that Kendrick made it not fun. The song isn't fun. You're right. This song made it not fun.
Yeah, this is where the rap stopped being
This is where it stopped being fun. What I will say, though,
fun for me.
Fair enough. Love that. This is what I'll say.
I mean, I still think it's fun too, but like this is fun. Where I could stop like showing people.
It's fun in the most visceral way that you're not supposed to be having fun with it.
Yes, it's like you can watch the reaction videos of like Euphoria and Family Matters and everything, and then you watch the reaction videos to this, and it's just people deadpan.
Yes.
Like oh my God, like zero reaction except just absolute shock.
Do yourself a favor and look some of those up after you hear this song too. Listening at home, if you haven't heard this, do yourself a favor with that. Specifically, the first one you should check out. Look up Academics reacting to Family Matters, then look up him reacting to Meet the Grahams, because it's him bouncing and he's into it with Family Matters and he's like, "What's Kendrick gonna say?" And then of course, 45 minutes later, hasn't even gotten off stream. He's slumped in his chair like John Fitzgerald Kennedy after getting the bullet. Like he's just sitting there staring, and Igor has nothing to say to it, and so he
says at the end of it, he's like, "Well, you have to shoot him now."
You do,
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do.
You have to shoot him.
So
Yeah.
he addresses him last. He says all this. He calls him an immature addict that has a whorehouse. He then gives him some sage advice where he says, "You should trip on drugs and restart your ego from the bottom," which is an insane thing to say to someone.
Great advice for Drake.
Oh yeah, he's getting really, that's gonna make him worse. He's getting really in the weeds with this, and he says, "Drake, you have a conflicted identity because you're mixed race. You're not able to live well with your black side or your white side, and you're incapable of healthily displaying masculinity," which is the therapy session that you're talking about. It's insane. It ramps up, and he says at the very least, or at the very last thing he says, "This is a lifelong battle with yourself," which is like, we talk a lot on the show. It's kind of a catchphrase at this point. We talk a lot about it, and honestly, it's a really cool piece of merch, and someone should make it. And one day, I think it will be me, just for myself, because I love this term. We talk a lot on the show about supervillain music, the way that certain beats kind of make people sound like they're just coming out of like their lair to come get someone. This to me elucidates a point that I think about when it comes to fiction specifically. Supervillains are scary. To me, what's scarier is people who are very real, you know, because here's the thing.
For sure.
Magneto doesn't exist, right? Like whoever the fucking villain in The Walking Dead is, I guess the zombies. The zombies don't exist, I guess. Kind of. I've never seen it. They don't exist. These villains, these supervillains who defy imagination, they don't exist. For better or worse, Kendrick Lamar in this song is a serial killer, and the boogeyman, and Michael Myers, and Kendrick Lamar, and the god of rap. And he exists, and he's all of them at once. And it's fucking...
The Gemini vibes.
It's chilling. It's so scary. So scary. Like...
At the same time, too, that line right before that last one, he says, "You lied about the only rapper that could offer you some help." Which I think is about him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And that's how I interpreted it, at least.
I don't know. That makes me wonder. I don't think anything happened behind the scenes where anything significant could have happened, but it's...
I think there's a reason that that Kendrick, I'm interested to know what it is that Kendrick saw 13 years ago.
Yeah. And I want to know when this help was an option.
Yeah.
Was it 13 years ago? Was it when he made Mr. Morale? Was it in the middle of this beef when Drake could have waved the white flag and said, like, "Teach me something," or whatever? When could this have happened, and how could it have happened? I really... Like, you know, I don't like Drake. I'm glad that he got torn down. I'm glad that Kendrick is the new undoubted king of rap, you know, numbers wise, status wise, all that. Like, you know, for us, he was, but now it's like, you know, he actually did dethrone the record breaker.
Yeah, you can't argue it anymore.
Yeah. But there is a part of me that's sad that we'll never see like the big three actually merge onto like one track, you know, like just like the discussion's been there for so long. It's like, I mean, I would never want to hear a Drake song again after these allegations, but like there's a happy ending somewhere in a parallel universe that we're never going to see. And it's just like, and I do wish that Drake reached out to Kendrick for help, or whatever he's implying here actually happened, because I would have loved to see them all team up.
I feel like Drake would have had a chance to reach out to him after 616 in LA.
Yeah.
That was probably because that was him being like, "Hey, bud, you know, I know some things. Your buddies don't like you. They're talking in my ear, you know," and that would have been probably Drake's time to be like, "Hey, what do you know? What's going on?"
Yeah.
You know, and like see if maybe he could bridge the gap between them.
Yeah.
but he didn't take. He went in the opposite direction.
Yeah, and Universal already spent all this money on a video. Universal already had a scheduled Friday night banger. They already had a premiere set. They already paid all these people. Like, I'm not saying it's not Drake's fault, but nothing was going to change that song coming out. Nothing was going to stop.
I also just think that Drake's ego was too big to ever reach out to him like that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Because if that ever came out, then, that's defeat right there.
Oh yeah, they were clowning him for trying to get Like That taken down, allegedly. They were clowning him for that. So where we're at right now is you could argue the epilogue, at least for now, of this beef.
Before we go there.
Yeah.
How are we feeling? Do we need a break? Are you okay? Is everything good?
I'm good.
How you doing?
I'm living the dream.
All right. Need a refill? Need bathroom break? Anything?
I'm solid for now.
Okay.
I think this is a good time to I think this is a good time for people who are listening to the podcast. We're about to get into the epilogue. That is the major climax of this movie.
And we'll keep it quick.
So if you want to take a bathroom break, pause now and come back, and we'll still be here. So, is there anything you guys want to say further before we move on to my favorite song of this whole beef?
So I thought it was done. I thought this was it.
Yeah. And
I never would have guessed that there was more.
So to paint a picture for what just happened, I have been using the firefight analogy this whole time. I would say that Family Matters was Drake lighting the match and saying, "Do you want to get crazy?" And Meet the Grams was Kendrick showing up to the front door with a flamethrower and saying, "You know I will." So to paint the picture, the house is smoldering ash. And then on May 4th, Kendrick Lamar says, "Oh, by the way," and he circles the block again, and he says, "This house is in a pile on the ground, and I'm going to show up in an Adidas tracksuit like it's Run DMC, and I'm going to lay the cardboard down, and we're going to break dance to a club banger." Because on May 4th, Kendrick Lamar releases Not Like Us. And oh boy,
is it on the beat, ho?
And it's a mustard on the beat song, and he's clowning, and he's clowning, and he's clowning, and let me say this: the catharsis from going to Meet the Grams to this, it's a breath of fresh air after a thunderstorm.
This was genius. This was the best play out of the whole
absolutely.
beef for me, because even I, like, as much as Meet the Grams was a nuke, as much as it was a win, and Drake deserves it. I'm not saying this to say that Drake didn't deserve any of this, but Kendrick did kind of suck the wind out of it. Like we said, it stopped being fun. Yeah. I wasn't excited for the next diss track anymore. I wasn't like, oh, this is like a classic moment. Like, I'm so hyped up. I can't wait to see what, we're not watching wrestling anymore. We're watching someone get stabbed in a back alley.
This is snuff. I mean? Yeah, we're getting to snuff.
Yeah, exactly. And
it was a historical moment, though. Like, I listened to it, and then I listened to it like 3 or 4 more times, and I said, oh, like, every other diss track that we've ever put at the top is finished. Yeah. Like, even though those were catchier, more of a bop, nothing is ever going to touch Meet the Grams.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But it's just such a murder that, like we all said, none of us felt good. I mean, you said you lied down twice as hard as you were. Like, you're going back to bed. You had a stomach ache. I had a bad trip, and now, and I think Kendrick going back to back here, while it might look like a weird, desperate angle, like Drake tries to spin it, like, oh, he dropped 2 tracks in a row, and then Drake only came back with 1, and then he did 2 more in a row again. I think him injecting the life back into it was really smart. Yeah.
It was.
I don't know if that
was...
And
taking it back to the West Coast was really smart.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I don't know if this was the plan from the jump, or if Kendrick just started seeing the reaction to, because the general consensus of Meet the Grams, like, while everyone agreed that Drake was dead, there were a lot of people saying, like, oh, this shit is not fun anymore. Like, I was on Twitter refreshing every 2 seconds, and like all the tweets I saw were like, all right, good job, bro, but you took it too far. Or like, this is scary now. This is spooky. I think him making such a fun, upbeat song, reinforcing all the points that Meet the Grams makes, but just in a much catchier,
right?
In a way more palatable way.
Yeah. It made it. It brought it back. Yeah. It brought it back. I do kind of wish, and we'll get into the content with this, but I kind of wish for this song. I think the reason why I still prefer Euphoria is I just don't want to hear about some of this stuff when I'm dancing.
That's
you know
fair.
what I mean?
That's fair.
Like as much as it applies, I don't want to hear about like and, and like, it just kind of.
I think the best part of it is I saw that he dethroned with that song.
Yeah.
The like the most plays ever, which was previously held by Drake.
Yep.
And who was it? Lil Baby for Girls Like Girls.
Yeah.
So they've had that title since 2017. So they've held on to that title since 2017, and it got dethroned this year by a song that calls him.
So there's a whole bunch that this song is. It's a return to West Coast. It's very much a hey, the world's burning. Let's have some fun, which is so funny to me. It's so funny, and it's funny too because it's also Kendrick saying, okay, on top of everything I've said, if you even have a career, it's in this money-making pop star thing you have. Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a danceable summer banger. I'm going to do that, and they're going to play it at clubs. And then, funny thing, they did. They played this. I don't know if
same night.
I don't know how
they played it that same night.
I don't know how sporty you guys are, really. I was watching the NBA playoffs, and a lead-in for a halftime show on TNT, they were playing Not Like Us for a halftime show lead-in on national television. They were doing this.
It's the best.
And it's funny too because last thing I'll say, we will get into Not Like Us. 2 hours and 20 minutes in. We will get into Not Like Us. The last thing I'll say, I don't know if you guys remember the first time you heard "Hit 'Em Up" by Tupac.
Yeah.
That for a long time, for a lot of people, was the most intense diss they'd ever heard. A, because it represented a period of time. B, because it represented a horrifying crime that would go on. Multiple, actually, horrifying homicides that would go on to happen, right? As opposed to all the good homicides, of course. But so
and just one of the most vicious opening lines ever.
Yeah,
you know,
he says in no Tupac says in no uncertain terms, "You're fat. I fucked your girl. I'm gonna kill you." And from then on, everyone said, "Okay, that jumps the shark. Let's be more polite, right?" And you get diss tracks all over that aren't like that. To me, and I think to a lot of people, and this will put a bow on the Meet the Grams thing. Meet the Grams is the most haunting and horrifying and direct and scary, and because of those things, the most successful, I would say, diss track of all time. I would say it is. And if you disagree with that, that's fine. You can. I think history will prove me right. So we move. Not Like Us. The house is burning. Let's have some fun. So again, all of the points, or all of this rather, the scattershot release schedule, the I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna get this, and the still talking at least a little bit about what Drake is gonna say, it points to a mole in the camp who could be feeding false information, as you implied, or as you postulated earlier, but he's feeding off of him, and this is a controlled release and strategic drop cycle that's kind of intended to drown out anything Drake may say, real, valid, whatever. So this for me is the most enjoyable song from the beef. At the very least, in a vacuum, this is the most enjoyable song. Without context, this is the most enjoyable one. It's an old school talk shit sort of thing. It's high energy. It's danceable. There's a bunch of one-liners. He's proving that he can beat Drake in conscious lyrical hip hop in that bubble, but he can also hop the fence into pop music and make a banger. And he did. And I'm pretty sure that this, and you said this actually earlier, but this compiled the most or the second most streams for a rap single in one day in Spotify history, and it's still growing. Yep. It's still growing, which is unfucking unheard of. That after the initial wave, it's still getting play, and that's unheard of. It's there's so many lines. I have a couple kind of written down here. Trying to strike a chord, and it's probably A minor, and he holds that for a while.
That killed me.
That's so
that line fucking killed me.
It's awesome.
Lots of vague.
And he sings it in A minor.
Dude, I didn't even know that. That's hard. There's some vague threats of violence here. Again, something that Tupac would have made directed at Biggie. He says Drake fucked Lil Wayne's girl while Wayne was in jail and then got a tattoo of Lil Wayne once he got out as an apology.
That's true.
It is true. Yeah. Wayne talks about it.
Yeah, on 6 Foot 7 Foot, which is also like Wayne's biggest song.
Yeah.
What's up?
And he talks about it in his memoir.
Oh man, I got to read that memoir.
Little Wayne has a memoir.
I got to read that memoir.
That's what I heard. I haven't read the memoir, but I heard he talks about it.
I did not know he had one. I'm sold right now. Can we do a book review on that?
Does he have a memoir?
If there is one, 100%.
Gone till
I'll read it this month.
Gone till November.
Oh, it came out in 2016? That's a weird
A
time.
Journal of Rikers Island. It's a prison memoir. Yeah.
Whoa.
Oh, okay.
Dude.
Which makes sense why he would talk about how Drake fucked his girl while he was in there.
It's 177 pages.
Wow. It might be the only thing that Lil Wayne's ever written down.
We'll talk about this off air. So it's lots of calling Drake a pussy and a scrub. This is the victory lap song, I would say. He implies, Kendrick does, that he may legitimately have a fleet of disses to drop. It's the Oppenheimer reveal at the very end where the camera pans out and you see lines and lines of nuclear bombs there. Spoiler for Oppenheimer, they have nuclear bombs in that movie. He references Drake's "Free the Slaves" line, which again is kind of what makes me think that he heard about Family Matters before it dropped, because he didn't write that in one night. If he did, God love him, but I don't know if he did. He says that Drake, Culture Vulture, he goes to Atlanta, Drake does, to get some trap artists to make a song with him when he needs, or he feels like he needs more cred. He calls him a colonizer. He references Family Matter. He totally knew. The line that I've been stuck on is he calls him freaky ass fella. He's a 69 god. That's catchy as hell.
69 god.
That's so fucking catchy. It's I don't know. It's a throwback.
And it's so catchy. And then the OV ho. OV ho.
It's awesome.
I saw babies dancing to that. That's crazy.
So sick. It's so again, even if this was the end and Drake didn't bury himself under a Rick Ross style pile of shit, even if that didn't happen a day later, every Kendrick song so far would swamp whatever song Drake had in a 1v1. You could take any of them. Drake's best,
100%.
Drake's best song doesn't stack up to Kendrick's worst song. What's Kendrick's worst song on this, would you say? Maybe it's 616 in LA just because it's short? Just like because it's the shortest. What would you say?
I think that one slept on, and I think the only reason it slept on is because it's not on Spotify, which is probably because it's an Al Green sample.
Right. Like,
I don't know. I don't know. I would say maybe his little verse on Like That, which might be controversial because it was short.
Right.
But if you have to compare them all, I think that one's probably the least damning.
Right. I mean, whatever opinion that we all come to about Kendrick's worst song, take Drake's best song. I'm almost willing to bet most of them will beat Drake's best song. I know you think it's Family Matters. Family Matters gets swamped by almost everything Kendrick released. I'm sorry.
We'll rank them at the end. So any comments there about Not Like Us? Anything to say before we move into the funeral of Drake? Thankfully, it's very simple.
Yep.
I like how simple Not Like Us is. I'm glad there wasn't, I mean, besides like maybe the Wayne thing, but it's really not that bad. I'm glad there wasn't like a second nuke drop, if anything. I like that this is a victory lap. It's just sort of
just doubled down. Exactly. Yeah, he doubles down on what he's already said.
Yeah, right. It's a greatest hits, and I think that I think that's what also helps the song a lot, is that this isn't like, it's not trending because of it's not tied around one specific concept. No. It's just, they already stormed the castle. They cut the head off the king, and now they're just like dancing in the ballroom type of thing.
I think that like, obviously Meet the Grams was like just so visceral and so like such a murder. But in a way you can almost argue that Not Like Us is worse because he made a dance song.
Yeah.
And called him a and everybody is singing it and dancing to it, whereas Meet the Grams, I feel like you're right. Like a lot of people probably are not going to go back for third, fourth, fifth listens of that, but people are bumping the song. And now the word file and Drake are synonymous for the end of time. For the end of time.
Hey, he's changed the culture yet again, has Kendrick Lamar. So I believe it's the very next day. Drake drops The Heart Part 6 on May 5th. And this is, as of now, this is the period at the end of this unbelievably long sentence. Yes. Put a hand on the heart. Put the hand up, salute. I mean,
wave the white flag.
What can you say? This is a white flag in song form, I feel. So this is the period at the end of what was an extremely long week for all of us. Oh my goodness. every day you turned on you turned on your smartphone and you started looking on Twitter and you're like, so which of these fuckers is going to say something next?
I'm still paranoid. I'm still checking Twitter all the time.
Oh,
I'm just
yeah.
like waiting for something else.
I check the trending.
Now we get the Riddler.
I check the trending to see if he dropped is a phrase that's trending all the time. It's true.
Remember this came out, we had Nah Drake trending.
Nah Drake, yeah. So full disclosure, when I first heard The Heart Part 6, I was like, it's about as good as a response as he could have. Upon any sort of reflection on it and dissection, it's just not, as the kids are saying, it's not it.
It's not. And I mean, he low-key admits to having ghostwriters, and you can tell in this one that he wrote this by himself. And then he says, yeah, this is like good practice for me, I guess. Like,
yeah.
He totally does that thing when you lose an argument. You say, well, I don't even care. I'm done anyways. Yeah.
I was just practicing. I was just doing this for fun.
This to me, light work. So
there's a lot of damning things about this song. And I think the most,
a lot of Freudian slips in this song.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I think the worst thing about this song, what makes this such a horrible diss, is that there is nothing in this song that is original.
No.
All of Drake's defenses were already tweeted about and theorized about. All of his offenses were already out there. He's just kind of doubling down on stuff that he still doesn't have proof of. It was completely unnecessary. The only thing that this song provides is acknowledgement that Drake heard the other songs.
That he has a phone.
Yeah, like it's just like we now know for sure how he feels about it, but like we didn't gain anything from it.
Right.
And it's riddled in Freudian slips. It's also riddled in as we touched upon earlier, just like non-educated misinterpretations. I mean, even the title, I talked to you about this a little bit, Kira, but like The Heart Part 6. Like, we get that he's taking over Kendrick's titling theme, but I don't know about you guys. I was seeing when Mr. Morale came out that people were already saying the Heart series was over because there's 5 chambers to the human heart.
Yeah.
So, like...
It's a really solid point.
Yeah, I mean, he could do a Heart Part 6. I mean, this is kind of a reach, but
no, he can't. Drake did it. He can't.
Yeah, right. No. But having...
That's why I'm hoping he just drops an album.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you believe the tweet, he's working on it.
Yeah, and you know, just to have The Heart Part 5 and have like 5 concise chambers, and then for Drake to make up a new extra chamber of the heart and to have it be completely misinterpreted like everything else, it's just like it's poetic.
True.
It's poetic. It's the most poetic thing about this.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Yep. I think one of the most interesting Freudian slips is that Kendrick says Weinstein. And then he says, I knew you were going to bring up Epstein.
I think I did that earlier this podcast.
Oh my God. I didn't even notice that was a difference until just now.
I know. When we were talking about...
He brings up the other one that was doing arguably work. Not to say that Weinstein wasn't bad and isn't bad, because he is.
Well, hot take.
But Epstein was the trafficker, the child trafficker.
Right. And I think I made that same mistake earlier when we were talking about Meet the Grams and that line where like he and Weinstein should get fucked up in a cell. I believe I said Epstein when we were referring to that because again, same reason here. It's like, when I think of Drake,
Epstein is more synonymous to what Kendrick is saying than Weinstein, even though Kendrick said Weinstein.
Yeah.
If you're comparing the two, what Drake is apparently doing with OVO is more akin to Epstein.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think we're going to have to, by the way, and we can record this later. I think we should probably put a disclaimer that we're talking about lots of like stuff. The content that's in these songs should probably have a content warning in front of it.
I mean,
just for the record.
It's in the NBA playoffs. It's on the radio everywhere.
I guess. I mean, hey, this is an
a trigger warning is I think it's
absolutely.
Fine. We're going to be talking about things that are
I thought you meant
censoring.
No, not censoring. No. I'll record it like on my drive home. Don't hit the censor button, please. Thank you. You've done a really good job not using it.
I know. I have a whole board of sound effects that I've had to restrain myself from tonight because I don't want to scare you off. But they're so funny. We're going to bring them in the next.
Oh, if you listen to the special episode we did before this, it's not us talking. Most of it's the soundboard.
I'm spamming the Rick Ross moaning.
And here's the thing. Here's the last thing I'll say about the first of all, great catch on the Epstein Weinstein thing. Did not catch that. What I will say, and I will say this directly to Drake. Drake, as a Jewish man, you should know the difference between those two shitty Jews. You should know the difference. You should, and you don't. And I think that's why we as Jewish people are not going to claim him.
That's why Kanye came out of nowhere. It all connects now.
Hey.
Holy shit.
Oh, I bet you Kanye learned about Drake being Jewish the same way I did and said, I fucking hate Drake. I bet. So the song, right? So
I mean, there's not much to say about the song.
no, I mean, but
honestly.
we're gonna.
It's like,
but we're gonna. So he sounds. First of all, he sounds exhausted.
Yeah.
He sounds so tired.
So tired.
He says, if he's lying about Kenny's family drama, where's your proof, Kenny? That's what he says. He calls Kenny's sources clowns. he says the daughter that Ken, and this is, I would argue, the biggest point that he makes here. The start of the crumbling of you're not standing on equal footing here. He says, Kendrick is rapping about a daughter that is part of an info leak that Drake's mole fed to Kenny. He says that the daughter line is fake and they fed it to him because they knew he would bite. Okay, so a couple things. This is just from my notes. If this is true, why throw it out into the song like this? He didn't go anywhere and prove that the leaks were false, that the daughter was false after Kenny dropped Meet the Grams. Why were you not doing victory laps if it was fake? That's a big win for you if it's fake. You should be on Instagram as he was on Instagram every fucking day. On Instagram.
He would have receipts.
Exactly. Post the receipts. And if you don't have the receipts, you're an idiot. You look like a fucking idiot. And
Exactly.
he's you should post an Instagram story talking about it. If anything, Drake acknowledges that there's moles at the compound and family matters, and then doesn't talk about them being fake at all until just now when it behooves him to do it. Right? He looks like an idiot. He again though. He steps back up with the Whitney stuff and he's like, well, why isn't she denied it? Says that she's following Dave Free but isn't following Kendrick. Calls
wow.
Oh no.
Maybe she doesn't want to see her husband's, or not husband, her fiance's like marketed persona,
brother,
on her feed. I mean, that's just my guess,
brother. I don't
know. How does your husband feel?
Kendrick doesn't post.
There's
that.
That's fair too. But like, I don't know. As someone who's married and also has influencer following, how does it like? Is your husband weirded out seeing your content, or does he see it as like a different persona of yours? How does it work? Like,
that's actually a good question. I never really asked him that. I know that he always likes my posts, and like I'll post something and then like 5 minutes later he's watching it right next to me. So like he is actively engaging in it.
I love that.
But yeah, that's a good question. I'm going to ask him that tomorrow.
Yeah. Cause I mean, I know as much as anyone else does about Whitney Alford, but like I was following her a little bit around the time that like Mr. Morale came out, and just given the literal words that she has on Mr. Morale, given the things that she said about the album when it came out, I don't even know if they're still together. Yeah. First of all, I mean, like on the album, he says that Whitney's gone, but then they're taking pictures together. So I don't even know if there's still a relationship. I don't know if it's just like a what's the word?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I mean, like she was riding with him since before he was famous.
Exactly.
And he admittedly cheated on her so many times over the last, how many years, 15 years, however many years that they were together. So yeah, it's not an unreasonable thing. And that's also something that like, I just found like the gotcha wasn't okay, so let's say she stepped out on him.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, what is that? Like, he's already talked about how much he stepped out on her. And so would it be hard to believe that she also did? Not really. And do I really care? Also not really.
Yeah. And the odds
it's not a gotcha moment.
Exactly. And the odds of it being Dave Free, of all people, Kendrick hangs out with what, 4 guys? He hangs out with Baby Keem, Schoolboy Q, Dave Free, and like occasionally Tyler the Creator.
And that guy on Twitter. who
oh yeah, the Riddler.
Yeah, well, they're not the Riddler.
Edward Nigma.
The guy who posted, he's like close personal confidant of Kendrick Lamar. He's dropping an album soon.
Baby Keem with a mask on. Yeah,
Baby Keem with a mask on.
But
I can't wait for the album.
Yeah. So for Dave Free, of all people, one of the 4 people that Kendrick will take a public picture with, like.
It's not happening that close to him.
You think someone's gonna
if it has happened, which I can't even say that I don't think that it has, because she probably did. she probably did at some point step out on him, and she would have every right to, in my opinion, right? So it's not really a big gotcha, but it definitely wouldn't be that close to him.
No.
At all.
I mean, he talks about like the moments that his children are born in his own songs. So, I mean, obviously, you can still raise a child that's not legitimately your own, but like it strikes me as weird that he would be so openly like passionate
but
about
even
it.
that, let's say Kendrick is raising a son that's not his. So what the gotcha moment is that he's a better dad than you?
Yeah.
Like he's taking responsibility for a kid that's not his?
Yeah.
Wow, that's so bad of him. Like,
Yeah, it doesn't really matter the angle you look at it with, is it? I mean,
yeah, he's going to take his best friend that directs all his music videos and goes on the cover of magazines with them and raise his kid. Why wouldn't Dave Free just raise his own kid? He's hanging out with Kendrick every other day.
Yeah.
And I don't think Kendrick's the type of person who would hang out with a deadbeat dad, clearly.
No. He's made it very clear.
Very clear.
So
he also in going back to Drake's final response, but just like his gotcha moment of like, I can't be I'm too famous.
That's insane.
What?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So like what?
He also never denies
as far as
he does
public
not.
sees, all the famous people, the most famous people are doing that.
Yeah.
So how is that how did that even come out of his fucking mouth? But again, it goes to show he wrote that song by himself.
Yeah, it's bad. And so moving forward with it, he calls Kendrick an absent father, which is probably one of the few things that actually would get to Kendrick if he heard it, I would say.
I don't think so.
I think he cares too much about his kids.
Kendrick doesn't strike me as someone who would be insulted by things that aren't true.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, hey, that's not unfair, but he calls him an absent father.
I mean, Kendrick literally says on Euphoria that, he lists out all the ways in which he's raising his kid better than Drake. Yeah. I mean, I don't think if Kendrick heard something like this, he would actually be worried about. I think that's the biggest difference between the two is Kendrick's
on
not as
that
insecure.
tweet that we all saw. Kendrick apparently just smiles through all of the disses that he listens to by Drake.
Yeah, exactly. Because
serial killer stuff.
Again, I think this is happening now. I'm not saying that Mr. Morale was like in preparation for this specific moment, but I think Kendrick is fully committing to these things now because of Mr. Morale, because he's already gone through the work, because he's already laid out every demon that anyone could possibly bring up about him. It's like, all right, like all the dirt was exposed. I shifted through it. I filtered it all out. Now it's time to really snatch the crown.
Right. Right. So moving forward, he says the Epstein angle was expected, quote unquote, and is based off of TikTok speculation. Okay.
Yeah, the Epstein angle was
The
expected.
Epstein
the one that
angle?
was never said.
Says all of Kendrick's claims do nothing to defend himself, and they only misdirect the energy towards Drake. And at that point, he goes into the Mother I Sober bit. Now, we're going to try and cover this pretty quickly because I think it's kind of been talked to death, but it's important to outline it. He says, or he implies that in Mother I Sober, Kendrick is talking about his experience as a child being assaulted by a family member, and that's why the bars were such a hot button thing that Kendrick had to talk about. So, first of all, that's not what the song is about at all. It's about his mother's experience being assaulted and her inability to believe Kendrick when he says that the same never happened to him. So at that level, Drake's just an idiot and doesn't understand the song. But let's assume in this instance that Drake's incorrect reading of Mother I Sober is correct. It's not correct. Let's assume it is. He is saying, and this isn't a good look either. So either way you swing it, it's not good. He says the only reason that Kendrick Lamar has any objection to the possibility of Drake being a is because he was. Let's let that sit for a second and really consider what he just said. Okay. Okay. So, that's insane. Just weird, insane. And again, it's Nostradamus at this point because Kendrick says at some point earlier on, he's like, Drake, you just start swinging and saying bullshit when you can't think of a good bar. And that's exactly what he's doing. He's just falling apart. He's falling apart. So it's a pretty poorly thought out claim. And it's also a big old whiff. And it just paints him as either stupid, immature, disgusting, or all three.
All of the above.
He's and it's funny too because he sounds cocky. He's like applauding himself for coming up with that. He's like, "Oh fuck, I just thought about this shit, bro. You think about this shit, bro." He's like applauding himself. Yeah. He's so happy about it. He's like, "Oh,
he is."
He's like, "Oh, this is the iceberg that's gonna take down the Titanic, bro. I got you." And it's not. It's just so not. And again, as you said, I have this in my notes too. He said that he is too famous to not be arrested for. Just not true. Don't know where
literally
that
we're all watching what's happening with Diddy right now.
It's no idea where that came from. Another mention of Rick Ross. What is up?
Big target.
Rick Ross has not spoken about Drake,
yes,
and at this point, and not in a rap, and not in a way that matters. This has been Drake and Kendrick for weeks.
Rick Ross has a story every single day about Drake.
He does.
It's just not. It's just
they're all hilarious.
But it's getting at Drake because he keeps bringing it up.
It is, but it's not where the energy should be directed. I don't know. And then
these songs aren't. Go
ahead.
One of Drake's biggest issues across this whole board, and especially with this song is not for Kendrick.
No,
this song is for the internet.
Yeah,
and that's where
agreed.
All these unprompted things come up out of nowhere, like the Millie Bobby Brown thing.
Yeah,
that's
again a tell,
but it's also like I disagree with the claim that it came out of nowhere. Because yes, Kendrick never mentioned it, but he's been getting clowned for that on the internet for so long. And that doesn't excuse it, but what that does is it makes it very clear who this song is for.
Yeah.
The song is not to scare Kendrick off. This song is to rally back all the fans he might have lost and to debunk every meme. That's what he's doing. He's fighting memes.
Right.
You're right.
He's not going against Kendrick. He's going against every tweeter right now that is in support of Kendrick.
The issue here is, as you said, and that's my next little bullet point here. He brings up Millie Bobby Brown unprompted. Now, I see what you're saying. It is very much him protecting his ego, trying to protect his image. Very PR move moment. You're right. Again, I think he's misreading the room because when you're calling your song The Heart Part 6, when up until then you're very directly talking about what Kendrick's talking about, me as a listener, what I read is, this is still the diss talking about Kendrick. That's how I read it because it's explicitly named to get Kendrick's attention, and it's at a moment in time where he needs to swing back at Kendrick. I think what you're saying is right within Drake's own head. I agree with you. It doesn't read to me that way, though. You know what I mean? It just reads as someone who's like, Freudian slip is the exact phrase that I believe you used earlier. Like, I'm not even... Why would I be texting Millie Bobby Brown as a child? It's just, whoa, hold on. Whoa, we didn't say that. What are you talking about? So I think you're right. I don't think it's a good move either way, though.
No, it's absolutely not a good move either way. But it's very telling as to what the intent was. And this is also not the first time he's mentioned the Millie Bobby shit. He mentioned it on his last album that came out, the one with first-person shooter on it. So, I mean, it's just he's scrambling. It's very clear. He doesn't give a fuck about Kendrick. And that's the mistake throughout the whole beef. He doesn't give a fuck about Kendrick.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make
he never takes him seriously. Exactly. He never really addresses him as a worthy opponent, which was like that was his hubris to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Not taking Kendrick seriously.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which just goes to show how much smoke has been blown up Drake's ass all these years. Because how could you be a rapper in the game for 15 years and not take that man seriously?
Yeah. So yeah, he mentions earlier in the song that Kenny's defense against Drake was pivoting and pointing fingers, which is exactly what Drake's doing now. He says he doesn't care about the numbers and nothing will convince him that Kendrick is on his level. He says that thing that all bullies say when a bigger bully hits the playground, I don't want to fight anymore. And he starts talking about the beef in the past tense. It sounds very much, that was a lot, I'm done. He sounds exhausted. And he says at the very end, all of my raps are facts. All of yours, Kendrick Lamar, are lies. And so ends the song section of our program.
Really burnt this shit the fuck out. Man. I don't want to do this.
The postscriptum, and just a really brief postscriptum. No new drops of music since The Heart. We're going on 5 days now, I believe. 6 days, 5 days.
Maybe you'd be a worthy competitor if you weren't running to every blogger and editor calling me a predator. Whatever the fuck
he said. No, I think you have it.
Crazy note to end it on.
He says this is where it kind of gets a little bit real. Drake's compound has had shots fired at it. I believe someone was injured. I think it was a bodyguard. I heard.
Did you see the latest on that?
I don't know if it's related to my next bullet point.
Was Whitney with him?
It was Whitney with him.
Know that the Toronto police started investigating it, and the security car involved is actually under Drake's name, and the security guard is Chubbs, and it's not an actual company. And now Toronto's like, there's basically nothing for us to investigate here.
So is the implication that he staged that?
Yes.
So did Chubbs get shot?
No.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So Chubbs didn't get shot, but the bodyguard that they're claiming was shot is Chubbs.
I don't know exactly who they're claiming got shot. I don't even think it's been released, but basically the Toronto police were like, hey, if somebody got in here and somehow got into your area, which is heavily guarded, which is heavily gated, he actually went to Toronto and like the city of Toronto to get bigger gates for safety purposes because he put his own self on blast and told everybody where he was. So he went above and beyond for safety. And then Toronto's like, this is really fucking serious. Who got in here? Started investigating it. And now they're like, basically, guys, there's nothing for us to investigate.
Yeah, that's weird. Of course it was Chubbs too. He's the one who should get shot because he's the one.
I mean, yeah. Yes.
So this is speculation. I don't know if this is true. I heard Drake might be fleeing the fucking country.
To Canada?
His last house is for sale.
Yeah.
In the States.
In the States, yeah. To Canada. That's what I mean by like fleeing to Canada. He's looking over my shoulder at my notes here. Some rando, we've dubbed him the Riddler, is claiming that he has all of the stuff in the 616 and Meet the Grams single covers, which is the, amongst other things, the Maybach glove, the prescription pills, the receipt for the jewelry, all of that. It's unclear if it's real. It seems that it has logical ability to be, but it's not confirmed. And lastly, some OVO store in Europe somewhere was defaced with graffiti that read, "They not like us." So ends the 3-hour story of this beef.
Let's rank them.
Yeah, we're gonna rank them. Is there any closing thoughts? Where do we go? I'm actually curious. Where do you think we go now? What happens next? If you could sort of make a real quick prediction about it, what do you think?
My prediction is Drake is now going to go into a little bit of a hiding.
Yeah.
He's selling his last house in the States. He's coming back to Canada. He sent Adonis and his baby moms back to France. So he's going to go lick his wounds in Toronto, where the age of consent happens to be 16. It's convenient for him. And I think Kendrick's going to drop this year, a new album.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would make the most sense for him. Ride that wave.
Yes. I agree. Totally.
I agree with that. I think even before this beef, Drake's plan was to hide out for a bit. And some of the things leading up to this beef, which I don't say them to discredit the strength that Kendrick brought, but Drake was already clocked out before any of this started. He announced after For All the Dogs came out that he was going to go on a break for a year. He announced that he was having major stomach issues, which is funny in retrospect, given the whole fake abs thing. But yeah, he announced that he was unwell. He was going to take a year-long break from music. The original version of Push Ups with the original beat and all that had different lyrics. And one of the closing lyrics in that version was, "I'm not even rapping after this. Y'all can figure it out." And then he changed, he changed that out. And then in Family Matters, we have the vacation line. And then in this song, we have the "This is burnt out, I'm done" line. Like, it's clear from the jump that Drake was not ready for any of this.
Yeah.
He was fully expecting.
Which begs the question, why? Why did he keep coming back?
Who knows?
You know?
It could have been universal. It could have been because he felt like he had to. It could have been anything. But, and that doesn't give any pity towards him, but it's also just, I completely agree with you. Like, all signs were pointing to 2024 is not a Drake year. I think what will happen is when he comes back, it's going to be a big marketed full budget return. It's going to be a bloated album. It's going to be a whole lot of songs about nothing, but we're going to get a few sneak disses the same way he treated Pusha for the last 5 years. And that's going to be that.
Contingent on what happens, though, because people have already started coming forward. So I think, if he's laying low and in the meantime, people come forward, women start coming forward, there's more allegations, maybe there's court, maybe there's, charges, that it might end him. Yeah. But if he goes and he hides and he licks his wounds and we forget about it, then yes, he could possibly come back with some very poppy album and a rebranding.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think this is going to hurt his career.
Yeah.
I'm not sure given Kendrick's style of music and his inconsistency, honestly, with schedule dropping, I'm not sure if he's going to necessarily take the throne in terms of numbers. I think he takes the throne in terms of like respect, and it's undebatable now that, no one's going to fuck with him.
Yep.
No one's going to say he's not the best.
No one's
rapper.
ever going to have a rap beef with Kendrick ever again.
Right.
But the last one.
Why?
But I don't think.
Why would you pick a fight with this motherfucker? Exactly. Why would you pick a fight with him? Why?
I don't think Kendrick's going to take the Drake slot. I don't want him to. If anyone's noticed, Drake drops an average of 2 albums a year.
And neither of them are good, but yeah.
Yeah.
For the last few years. Most of them are bloated with TikTok trends. He's constantly in the conversation. He's always doing something quirky. He's live streaming. He's interviewing. Like, I don't want Kendrick to fill that slot.
Yeah.
No, well, Drake is quantity over quality and Kendrick is quality over quantity.
Exactly. Right. But unfortunately, like the age that we live in, that's how you stay the most popular. Yeah. I mean, Taylor Swift, et cetera, et cetera. It's like... If Kendrick wants to be the number one numbers guy, that's what he has to do. And I don't want him to do that. I don't think he's going to do that. But I think it's undeniable now within the people who are actually educated on the genre, like us. Like, this is solidified now. It's no longer an opinion. Sure. It's a fact.
No.
I mean, again, you heard me muttering it under my breath. I agree with everything. What you guys are saying is right. It's an incubation period for one, and it's another explosion. How Kendrick Lamar has reshaped the culture multiple times, and this time he was dragged into reshaping the culture, and he did it anyways. But why would you fucking pick a fight with Kendrick Lamar? Why would you do it? Who says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to spit into the wind. I'm going to tug on Superman's cape. I'm going to slap box with God. Who in their right mind says, I'm going to go up against the best? The balls, the empty dumb fuck-headedness of Drake to say, oh yeah, I'm on rap Jesus's level. Are you an idiot? Like it's just...
He is. But that's what it comes down to. He is.
He's an empty-headed...
Because only an idiot would do that.
Exactly. He's an empty-headed dumb fuck. He just is. Kendrick hints at it, like in one of the double entendres in Euphoria. I think it's Euphoria. He says, it's a double entendre where he basically akins Drake to Icarus. He flew too close to the sun. Like you said earlier, he has had people blowing smoke up his ass for so many years, he started to believe his own myth. And now, he has been outed. He has been brutalized. He has been exposed as a fraud, and we might not see Drake on music for a bit of time. And let me just be the first to say, oh no.
It'll be interesting to see who I don't think that when he does come back, I don't think it's going to be an album. I think he's going to start featuring to test the waters, dip the toes in.
Yeah, probably.
I'm interested to see who lets him feature first. I'll have an eye on those people. Because I don't think like right now, I don't think anybody would touch him with a 10-foot pole.
Oh, it's going to be someone
like, no, I'm not making music with you. Like that's suicide.
It's going to be someone left field. It's going to be like Ken Carson or something stupid. Like someone just completely out of nowhere. He's going to be on the new Denzel album. Kill myself. So we're gonna rank them now. I think it's best we do a bottom top. I think we do the least good to the most good because I think it just makes a more impactful list, right? Does that make sense?
Okay.
So I believe guests should serve. Kira, what is the worst track? And I think I know where you're going with this. What is the worst track in this beef? It would be, let me just count them real quick. There's 1, 2, 3, not including Tailor Made, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 songs here. What is number 7?
Number 7 is the last one. What's the last one Drake came out with? What was that?
The Heart Part
called
6.
again? Heart Part 6.
Yeah. Any comment on why, or do you think it speaks for itself a little bit?
I think it speaks for itself, but basically it's an admittance of defeat.
Right. Yeah.
And so that can't go anywhere near the top. It has to go on the bottom because he admits that he lost.
He does. Yeah. I think I can't speak for you, my friend. I think we're probably going to agree for all those reasons and a million more. The Heart Part 6 is really sad. It is tail between the legs. It is unsubstantiated. It is idiotic. It is melancholic. It is just really sad.
Yes.
He went out sad.
He did. Yeah. It's the worst one.
Tail between his legs.
Exactly. So now the list can start. What was number 6 for you?
For me, all of these at the bottom are going to be Drake. I would say number 6 is Tailor Made.
Okay. Yeah. Would you like to comment on why? I believe it would be 7.
I think that Push-Ups was harder.
7. Yeah.
And I think that Family Matters was harder.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's hard for me to rank Drake's songs because I think they were all bad.
Yeah.
But I think if I'm going to put him all at the bottom, that would be like my second to last, just because I don't find it very memorable at all.
Right. So if we are counting Tailor Made, we're going to do 8, 7. So this being 7, I think if that's the case, then yeah, Tailor Made 7. Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say that.
It's
I like it better than Heart Part 6.
Yeah, it's disgusting and really gross, and I don't like talking about it to the point that I didn't listen to it again.
Yeah. Well, the third verse is good enough that it's better than Heart Part 6.
Oh, all right.
So I'm solidifying it at 7 for me too.
So that's equal footing on 8 and 7. What is 6 for you?
Push-Ups.
Yep. Me too. Push-ups. It's not bad.
I agree with that.
It's not bad. It's just it's
not bad.
It's the appetizer. There's nothing going on.
It's not great.
It's the appetizer. He sounds not bad on it. Again, if you were to listen to Push-Ups and then listen to Where This Beef Goes, it's really just kind of a nothing. It's fundamental. It's fundamentally sound. He gets some fun bars off, but that's it. You know?
Yeah.
And you said you agree, my friend?
Yes. Yeah. I'm solidifying that too.
So
this is where we start to differ.
This is where we're going to hopefully have a little bit of intrigue. We are now at, what are we at? Number 5? 5. Yes, we are at 5.
5 is Family Matters.
5 is Family Matters. Okay. Why?
I think that's his best diss track of the bunch. But again, I just didn't find it very he had something strong there. So I have to give him that. Like, he did have some good bars, but he lost it with some really incredibly stupid fucking lines.
Right.
So that's why it's still ranked low.
Okay. For me, to be honest with you, this is where a lot of the stuff in the middle is really good, but it starts bunching together for me. I don't know how controversial this is going to be. And I want to preface it by saying it's not because I don't like the song, because I do. For me, number 5 is 616 in LA. And again, it's a good song. It's just in terms of what Kendrick Lamar drops, it's one of the shorter ones, and it's not as bouncy and memorable. It doesn't make as much of a meal of its time as Not Like Us does. So 616 in LA, it's great, and I love the beat. It might be my favorite beat of the entire series here. But for me, it's doing the least of Kendrick's, and it's great, but and admittedly, pretty good by Kendrick standards, still washes almost everything that Drake did. So, for me, number 5 is 616 in LA. George.
Meet the Grams.
Meet the Grams. Whoa.
Ooh.
Okay. Talk about that. Yeah,
that's controversial.
Yeah, talk about that.
I'm not saying it's a bad song by any means.
Okay.
I still think it's the biggest bombshell. I still think it's the strongest diss out of all these back and forths. But it's also, I mean, we're talking about songs.
Yeah.
This is music. This is a form of entertainment, and rap especially, this is a sport. For me, this beef, if we're talking between these two as musical artists, is at its peak when they're jabbing at each other.
Yeah.
When they're really going back and forth between the two of them, insulting each other, bullying each other. That's what's fun about it. That's the competition. Kendrick destroyed him with this song.
Yes.
But it's also, we all said it, it's not a song that any of us are going to really go back to. It doesn't feel like it's within the realm, and it's Drake's own fault, but it doesn't feel like it's within the realm of sport anymore. 5/6 of it aren't even addressed to Drake. It's just not fun. Yeah. Like the concept is fun and the drama is fun, but I'm not ranking these on drama. I'm ranking them on music. Fair. And as a piece of music, it's like, he did its thing for its moment. I think in terms of Kendrick's discography, it's going to age the worst. I mean, it's a time capsule for this little thing, but again, it's like, this is not something that we're ever going to revisit out of like for Kendrick. We're revisiting this for Drake. And I think that defeats the purpose of a beef entirely. Like when we hear this song, we're hearing about Drake's entire family. I don't want to think about Drake's family. Yeah. I don't want to hear about if I'm going to listen to music, I want to, like, part of the reason why like a song like Euphoria, and we'll get to that, hypes me up so much is because like it fills me with energy. It gets me hyped up. It makes me think about Kendrick. Yeah. And that's the peak of a beef for me. I want to hear about how good you are. And I want to hear about how trash your opponent is in the sport. I don't want to hear about honestly, but but not to discredit the moment it caused. And obviously I loved it when it came out, just like as a piece of art and entertainment. That's where it is for me. Right.
Okay. So swinging back around now, I believe we are at number 4. Kira, lead the way. What is number 4?
Number 4 would be 616 in LA.
Okay.
Similarly to what you said, I think it's slept on, because I think it's very ominous. And when you're looking back at it with everything we know having happened, it was definitely more of a threat than we realized at the time. But yeah, again, I think of all of them, it had the least amount of punch to it. Yeah. It was just it was a warning shot.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah, exactly. I don't even know what else to say about that. But so for me, number 4 is, again, this isn't about the quality of the shit that he says. This is about, at this point, we're starting to sort of split hairs a little, I think. For me, number 4 is Meet the Grams. And again, it is a incendiary song. It is a transcendent experience in hater behavior. It is absurd. It is vile. It is sour. It's gross. And it has all of those intended effects. But it's like you say, it's not something I'm going to go back and hear. I told you, I said it right at the start. This is the one I did not want to go back and hear. It's really gross, and not gross in like a you shouldn't have made it moral quandary way. It's gross in how it makes me feel. Right. So. Yeah. I think what I will say, where my read differs a little bit from yours, it's not that it'll age poorly in his discography, as you said. I think it will age separately, like which is what you said, but which is what you said, admittedly. Sorry, but I think it's more that it's going to be a monument.
Yeah, but up until this point, just to add on to my reasoning a little bit as well, we've never had a solo Kendrick work that isn't about Kendrick. Yeah. I mean, all the shit he's talked, even the control verse, like none of that's on his own music. This is the first time we really get something that's so dedicated to another man and another man's family that is a part of Kendrick's. I mean, it's on Spotify. Yeah. Somehow this is on Spotify and 616 isn't. But like that was a bit of a disappointment for me, because that's something I always liked about Kendrick's discography. It's so tight. It's so clearly the story of him as a man. Right. And I like that he always brushed off his side drama to like other people's shit, even like that not being his own song. Yeah. So it's just kind of like a weird stain. Yeah. But that's just me. You know?
So moving forward, though, what is number 4 for you? Georg.
I'm trying to think of what's left. We got Family Matters, 616, Euphoria, and Like That. Are we counting Like That?
No. Not Like Us.
Not Like Us. Okay, that's my 4th.
Not Like Us is 4. Yeah. Oh my God, George.
Similar reasons.
I fucked George. That's the first one that you've said that I've literally fucking hated the placement. That sucks. That sucks.
I mean, it's a bop. It's a great song. I think it was a great rebound, cool moment. But also, like, I've heard better mustard beats. It's like sonically it didn't wow me. So I mean, I'm glad that Kendrick of all people is doing it, but it's not like the craziest, most West Coast song I've ever heard.
Right.
Like, I'm glad it's popping off the way it is, but it's like, it sounds like a pretty average song especially by Kendrick standards. I think him going the catchier poppy route and going down to Drake's level works as a diss, but it also, again, he's stooping down to Drake's level.
Yeah.
I don't want to see Kendrick do that personally. I think Kendrick is at his prime when he's doing Kendrick and doing it better than anyone else could do. But here he's like, okay, like 69 God is catchy, OV Ho is catchy, but it's like, you're Kendrick Lamar. Like,
69 God.
Yeah. Like, give me something a bit more than that.
69 God.
Yeah, like it's catchy, but like, what is, besides the fact that it's a sex position and he's calling Drake freaky, like what's the point?
Sex God.
Yeah.
God, 69 God.
Okay.
Cute little moment.
It's a Kanye line. That's a Kanye line.
Shut the fuck up talking to me.
And again, I just don't want to hear about
Hey.
when I'm like, when I'm trying to dance, but that's just me. But
that's just me. Okay, so we are moving back around here. Top three. What is in bronze position for you?
This I might change my mind later.
Okay.
Because I kind of go back. I have my number one, obviously, but I think the two and three can kind of go back and forth based on how I'm feeling. I think 3 is Not Like Us.
Okay, so I'm with 2. Okay, sure. Why?
20v1.
So I guess I'll explain more when I get to my number 2. But kind of the same idea. Like, it's very catchy. I really like it. I've played it probably the most, even though I technically prefer Euphoria. It's a bop. And I think I like that he came in, he said, you guys want to dance? No problem. Let's dance. And he came out with something that they're playing in the clubs. It's very catchy. Everybody is quoting it. It's made Drake synonymous with the word. Like, it's just so many good things. However, I do see myself getting tired of it by the end of the summer.
Okay.
And because of that, I can't rank it higher. Like, it's top 3. No. It's doing what it's doing, and it did what it did. But is it as good as the other 2 in terms of the impact to the beef? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it, like I said, I think it'll depend on how I'm feeling from one day to another.
Yeah.
Am I feeling very like hateful and depressive, or am I feeling like I want to go drinking?
Yeah. And like, just to piggyback on that, like you said, you're going to be sick of it by the end of the summer. The sound of it, I don't really know how to articulate this fully, but the sound of it, like the type of beat it is and the type of sound that he's going for, it reminds me so much of Humble. And that song's so overplayed. I don't know about you guys.
It is overplayed.
I can't really listen to it anymore.
I agree.
No, it is.
Like, and I feel like I'm gonna have the same effect with this song in a year, especially with how much it's popping off. It's great that it's working to take down Drake, but like when I hear kids playing this constantly at like sports games and shit, I'm gonna be so sick of it, and it's gonna be a bad representation in my mind of like my favorite rap artist ever.
Hey, listen, you guys can. I'm understanding how alone I currently stand. I get it. That's fine. No hate in my game. So, number 3 for me, it's Family Matters by Drake. And Family Matters is Drake's best swing. Obviously, I have it ranked the highest of his songs. It's his best swing. And I think that it's his best swing because it kind of sounds like he's after something. The complaint lobbed at Drake by myself even. I won't even speak for anyone else. By myself. A lot of the times he sounds lethargic and sounds like he doesn't fucking care. And in this one, if nothing else, the person who walked through the door of the studio that day and recorded this song was a version of Drake that at least fucking gave a shit. And I can respect that. And I think it's the 3 suites work, and they have pretty coherent, cogent points. ASAP Rocky is buried for the one reason or another. And he sounds committed and convinced. I think the beat carries a lot of the water that Drake isn't willing to carry, because I still think in certain pockets it sounds a little bit like Drake's fighting the beat that he's rapping over a little. Not that you need to be on it the whole time, but in the moments where he kind of tries to dance away, it almost sounds like he's like, oh fuck, I kind of went too far, and now let's get back to the beat a little. But yeah, it's a really good song. It is a very good song with some the music video is funny. It's just funny to watch them crush the Good Kid, Mad City van. That's fun. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a whole bunch to say about it. It gets taken down a lot of points by always rapping like you're about to get the slaves freed. That's just weird, and it kind of plays into Kendrick's hands a little in the whole like not vibing with your skin color thing, and I don't fuck with that. Again, he says Rick Ross is on Ozempic. Love. Yeah, no, I mean, hey. And at the very end, he says the funniest line that this beef could ever have produced in retrospect. Kendrick Lamar's dead. This beef's over. I'm going on vacation. Very funny. What's number 3 for you, George?
616.
Okay.
It's great.
Yep.
I think it's fucking awesome. It could be longer. He could have more to say on it.
Yeah.
I think it would probably be higher if I could listen to it more easily too, honestly. I wish it was on streaming. But, you know, the beat's great. I love the first half, him praying to God. I do think it leans a little too heavily into like metaphor and entendre, if anything. Like this is the first song I had to like really sit down and decipher.
Yeah.
But yeah, besides that, it's great.
Yeah.
Solid number 3.
All right. Silver medal, Kira. Silver medal. What are we thinking?
Meet the Grams.
Okay. All right. Talk about it.
And I know that might be controversial, because if we're talking about playability, then, you know, it ranks lower. But I think what it did in the community was so big, so substantial. And like you said, it's kind of, it's where were you when Meet the Grams dropped? What were you doing? That's going to be a question that we ask people.
Yeah.
Just like, where were you when like JFK got shot, or like these huge monumental moments? And I think that that's not something we should take lightly, because it is going to be that moment of like, that's when the beef happened. Do you remember when Meet the Grams came out?
Yeah.
Do you remember that moment? You know, and I think like when I started really listening to it again and thinking about it and realizing that it dethrones Hit 'Em Up, which is arguably one of the most popular diss tracks ever and always ranked top, no Vaseline, like anything that I can think of, it dethroned it in terms of how lethal it was as a diss record. And for that reason, I have to put it number 2.
Yeah. Hey, 100%. I mean, yeah. And it's, yeah. There's no arguing with that at all. Yeah. So my silver medal, Euphoria by Kendrick Lamar. Now, I am understanding that in general, I will probably be in the minority with that opinion. I really love Euphoria, and it grew on me listening to it this time too. I have my issue with the beat switches. I have my issue with it because listening to a rap diss, but having to get through just bizarre Baby Keem like ad-libs rather from Kendrick Lamar at the start, it's off-putting to me. It doesn't take much away, but it's a bit of a moment for me. But it's great, and it's catchy, and it bounces, and it's very much a okay, let's spar. I'll come off the perch and I'll come at you. And the excitement from seeing it pop up on the feed, like you're saying, Kier, the moment of it is being like, oh shit, here we go. We're here. The so many lines, the YNW Melly line, the threatening feeling of, hey, if you want to go down this road, we'll go down this road. The very first time I shot me a Drake, told me aim it this way. I'll show you I learned from those mistakes. Crazy. It's just great, and it's catchy, and it's awesome, and I like it a lot. And I think it'll be remembered maybe a little more fondly than my number 1, but we will get to that. George, what is your silver medal here?
It's Family Matters.
Yeah,
It's Family Matters, man. it's fun. I like it. I mean, I'm not a Drake fan by any means, but that is exactly what I wanted out of a response. There's a few missteps in it. You know, some things he shouldn't have done. I don't think he should have taken the family route. But I mean, that's sport. You know, that's what makes for a good game. I love a good back and forth. I think this is the best thing we could have possibly expected from Drake. And I think even with the mistakes that he makes in there, like that's what makes for an exciting competition.
Right.
And that's why it's good for me.
Right. Okay. Here we go. Rounding out this 3 hour and 20 minutes at this point podcast.
Thank you so much, Kira.
Thank you so much for being here. We've loved it. It has been
fun. No worries.
It was so much fun. And if it wasn't 11:30 at night, I'm sure we would talk for so much longer.
For sure.
What is your gold medal? What is the number one song from this beef?
Euphoria. If only for when he said, "When I see you stand by Sexy Red, I believe you see two bad bitches. I believe you don't like women. That's real competition. You might pop ass with them." That verse.
It's hard.
I was on the fucking floor.
It's hard.
And there's just so many different things I can pull out in Euphoria. And the fact that I feel like it's replayability for me, like I'm going to be listening to Euphoria the same way that I listen to Money Trees.
Yeah.
I've been listening to that song for fucking 13 years and I'm going to still listen to it on repeat all the time. And I think Euphoria is going to be that for me as well, because differently from Not Like Us is it's very catchy and it kind of lives in the same kind of cadence and style throughout. Whereas Euphoria has so many switches, which it feels like 3 different songs. And like, it has so many different things that you can pull out. And I just think that he really, he was in his fucking bag when he did that.
Yeah.
For
Such
sure.
a journey. It's such a journey.
It is. So we're now rounding the corner to number one. Again, I understand everything that has been said about this song. And respectfully, he calls him 69 God. And he calls him an OV ho. And with love and respect to the lovely write-ups that you guys just verbalized at me about Not Like Us. Not Like Us is for me right now, and it can change. It is the best song from this. It is so fucking catchy. And again, you need to contextualize it within the moment because you can contextualize it multiple ways. In a vacuum, it's the only song you can really listen to. And yeah, the lyrics are a bit, but in a vacuum, you can probably listen to it and enjoy it just off of sound. But if you want to contextualize it in the beef, we just got Meet the Grams and we're on fire and we're burning. And then Kendrick comes around the next day and says, "Hey, here's some aloe vera and you can dance with it." And it's awesome. And I'm sorry, it's so catchy. Is it going to wear thin? Fuck. Probably. I won't lie. But again, you just can't. If you can deny it, then you can deny it. I can't personally. I saw a fucking TikTok of pixel art. This is random. I don't know why this popped up on my feed of all times to get it. Pixel art. Kendrick Lamar was punching and dancing in rhythm with Knuckles the Echidna from
Knuckles,
Sonic.
I've seen that.
and it's hard. And he dances with Knuckles, and it's like, come on. He says trying to strike a chord, and it's probably A minor, and he holds it for at least 8 counts. It's wild. It's so good. And again, I understand everything you're saying. Is it going to be a song of the summer? Maybe for June, and then we'll move on. But it is the exclamation point at the end of such a fun little movie. And for me, it's catchy and it sticks with me. And when you're talking about what are you really going to stick with? You're going to stick with the shit that you remember. And I'm going to remember the way he says A minor for the rest of my life. Just am. So, Georg, round us out. What is the best song from this saga?
It's Euphoria.
Yeah.
It's Euphoria. Kendrick has this habit whenever he disappears for a while. Lately, he's always come back with this like big triumphant return. And you can say that like that was a bit of a return, but Euphoria, it gave me the same feeling that like Family Matters did. I mean, not Family Matters, fucking Family Ties with Baby Keem. Like when that came out, and it was our first time hearing Kendrick in years. And like Heart Part 4, right before Damn came out, he has this way of just his presence is a moment.
Yeah.
When he comes back from a hiatus. And I mean, we touched on it. Everything about that song is a journey. I love the beat switches. He taps into every side of Kendrick Lamar that we've seen. I think the energy and the content is palatable enough that it's timeless. I mean, even though it's directed at Drake, you know, like most of the best banger diss tracks, like even Hit 'Em Up, like you can just listen to it for the energy. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the actual context surrounding it. I love the Baby Keem inflections personally. I've loved them since Family Ties.
Well, okay. I'll leave the room.
I think again, part of the reason why this is my favorite era of Kendrick that we're in, and why this is my personal prime for Kendrick. I mean, no, but it's because like I think his rapping style is evolved to such a point. Like the way it's not even so much the things he says. He's still writing with the same pen that he's always written with, but now he's always had the best pen. So it's like, what do you do from there? You evolve it further. You take your voice and you strain certain words, you stress certain vowels to make these lines more memorable. I've had this entire song. This is a 6+ minute song. I've had the entire thing stuck in my head for like weeks now. I could probably rap the whole thing right now. I'm not going to.
We're not yet. Okay. Cool.
But
the amount of times at work, because I work in I work in automotive, so I work with a lot of men and manly men. And the amount of times that I've taken from like, oh, you all work with me, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that line. Nobody knows what I'm talking about, but like
exactly.
it's so good. It's just so good.
Yeah. I mean, I was doing it earlier. B, the fucking I'm YNW Melly. Like that whole like that shit's
Push a T.
Yeah, like all of it. All of it's fucking sick.
Yeah.
Can I bleed him yet? Like it's just, and again, like the content hasn't taken the dark turn yet. It's that is the peak of the sport for me.
Yeah. All right. So that is unbelievably, we did it. We covered all that ground. We did. Kira, thank you so much for joining us. It has been such a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Plug yourself.
Yeah, please tell the lovely folks who just listened to us yammer for 3.5 hours where they can go find you for more.
So I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at THATHORRORBISH. So BISH. I sometimes talk about rap. I mostly talk about horror literature. But you can find me on anywhere you are online.
All right. So, my friends, that is it for this episode of Sleeper Suplex. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you made it this far, thank you so fucking much. Oh my God. This is, I will say, one special thing that I do want to say. This is the first time we've said it verbally. This is our first episode recording since the official Sleeper Suplex Spotify page dropped. If you want to listen to us while you're in the gym, God love you, but you can now. If you want to listen to us while you're on a walk, while you're in a car, while you're in a train, while you're in the rain, with a rat, with a mouse, in a house, whatever. If you want to do any of it, you can now. So please find us on Spotify. Give us a rating if you can. We're still going to be on YouTube if that is your fancy. No matter what, if you're here and you're listening, thank you so much for doing it. George and I talk about it all the time. He and I would be talking about music no matter what. So the fact that you give us a reason to hear ourselves, God, is it fun? It's even if it's for 25 people. Fuck, is it so much fun? George, anything to add?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was great.
We look forward to suplexing you again. Goodbye.
See ya.